Okay.
I tell you about my buddy who lives off like 40. All river bottom. You tell me it all these things. On plants or I'm not very tall, but they're tall. Get them all wired up really nice cages. Tomatoes are all like soft. I've never seen tomatoes. They put up 100 boards. There's all that many plants. And when he told me all this, I was like, yeah, I went out. Got enough by 7. So I tried that. He had smart days that were put up to make stuff out there.
Morning.
It's
Good morning.
unbelievable.
My frog here.
Guys, the sun is shining,
Birds are singing.
the birds are singing, and it is
8:05.
8:05 and we're late, and I'm calling this meeting to order and through things as quick as we can.
Zippity-doo.
And so do call this meeting to order. Beck, would you do the roll? Yeah, okay.
Jim Sheeline.
Here.
Doug Farster. Rick Humphrey.
Here.
Tom Kitson.
Present.
Lyra Mamini.
Present.
Arlen McLean.
Okay, and Arlen did say that he would, depending on his healthcare coverage, that he might be running late. So picking up where we were the other day, last Thursday, if you want to turn to page 2 of the general fund budget. No. So just as a reminder, what we did, minimum wage contingency, we reduced that from 256,880 down to 200,000 even. And so what we're left on this page would be what we're going to do with the corrections department, patrol deputy, and basically the sheriff's request on people. So having had several discussions with Paula and Bob and a text from the sheriff, where what I would recommend would that be we would do the 2 of the correction deputies and 1 patrol, and then we would add a dispatcher in, and with the idea that the dispatcher, since the contract with the city is coming up, and we'll be renegotiating that contract along with Amboy, and hopefully be bringing in the other municipalities online, that cost for the dispatcher will actually go down. I think, having talked, I did have a conversation with Shelley Dallas. I think there's justification there because of the call volume and the workload that's been put on that department over time. And it really doesn't make sense to put, I do buy into the argument, more people we have on the road, you gotta have that communication capability. So that would be my recommendation. Let's talk about it.
I guess I don't necessarily not agree with you, Jim. My concern is that we're still $300 and some thousand negative. And how are we going to balance this budget? And I guess it goes back to, yes, we have some one-time money. So that'll take care of this year. And my concern is down the road, because if you start adding personnel, eventually we got to figure out how we're going to cover this. So I concur with what you're saying about needing to look at adding additional headcount, perhaps. My concern is long-term. I don't know that we've got a very good answer to address that. So that's the issue.
That's the issue. Doug, have anything?
Right there. I mean, actually, what you proposed is what I would say going with as far as the sheriff.
Mhm.
I'll be honest with you, I spoke to the
Can you
sheriff.
turn
Also.
microphone? Please.
Yes, Arlen. I mean,
Yeah. I'm not used to that. Plus it's something small.
Again, I concur with Rick. I concur with you. I realize, it gets to the point where it's like, okay, where else can we cut? What else can we do when it does come to safety? for the citizens throughout the county. This is almost, we have to do it.
Right.
And I agree, Rick, about, I know, I don't want next year to go, okay, now we're really, where are we coming up with the money or 3 years from now? We're just, one-time money's gone. We keep, seems like raising fees and everything we can. We have quite a bit.
Yeah, we just did one last month.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just a point of order. May we go back and follow the agenda, go to visitors, I believe.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry, but we jumped into it and I think we need.
We did, because Jim wants to get it back on the combine, but we need to get.
Gotta have it,
this-
Jim. Gotta have
I
it,
know, I have it. So that, thank you for the point of order, Mr. Kitson. So let's go around the room. Mr. Bally just walked in. Do you have anything good for the cause today, Mr. Bally?
No, well, just trying to catch up with where things are happening.
Very good. I don't know your name, you in the back?
Andrea, I would like to say something in regard to what you're speaking about right now. I'm gonna try not to cry, but I cry about everything. So I know you guys are making your decision. I understand that you have financial worries in this, but this is really close to my life. So I just want to share some things with you before you make your decision on what you're going to do. My husband is a deputy in the jail. They are exhausted, they are stressed, they are frustrated. The sheriff, the deputy, the lieutenants are going above and beyond to do what they can to alleviate these stresses for them. But I just want to give you an example of kind of what it feels like for them. I want you to imagine yourselves on a ship. You're short-handed and injured. You're all struggling, but you're managing to keep your ship on course and running. You are hitting rocky waters. Your ship is becoming damaged and you're scrambling to repair the damage and still maintain all of your duties. You continue to scramble as your ship slowly sinks. You're exhausted. Your crew is exhausted. More people are becoming injured and the health of your crew is fleeting. The crew is losing hope and many are ready to bail. The only people who can help you are on land and they've never even been on your ship. They don't really understand how bad it can be. They don't want to send additional crew members out to help you. What if there isn't enough work for those crew members to do? You beg and plead and try to provide as much evidence as you can, but these people on land cannot imagine life at sea on a sinking ship, and you are on your own, and yet you still need to bring your ship home. You have an opportunity to correct this. In order to effectively decrease the possibility of my husband being injured on the job and not making it home safely, they really do need to have 4-man shifts running in that jail. You have to look beyond these numbers because those 3-man shifts that they're running are really 2 men doing all the duties because one of them has to stay in the mezzanine and they are not allowed to leave for any reason. My husband had to sit in there and watch as one of his fellow deputies was beaten because he couldn't go down to save her because he had to stay in there. They run the bond window, they run the offender registry, they run warrants, they manage all the phone calls, they screen mails, messages, videos, calls, set up transports, move the inmates to and from probation, attorneys, judges, nurses, doctors, counselors, library, church. Anything that every inmate has to do, these guys have to get them there and get them there in a time frame. They wash and dry the laundry, they dispense their meals, their commissary, their meds, they do the cleanup. They handle all the inmate grievances, questions, disagreements, and fights, all while booking in new inmates. And they have to set an alarm to go off every 26 minutes. Every 26 minutes, they have to have physically been to visit every inmate and made sure that they're still breathing and answer anything that they need answered every 26 minutes. When do they take a lunch break? My husband does not take a lunch break. They do not get breaks because there is not time. This new jail was modeled after a jail that runs 4-man shifts. Running these jails with 3-man shifts is a large factor in the number of injuries that have already been sustained by these deputies. This leads to overtime. This leads to further exhausted deputies, which leads to more overtime because their health has declined. This creates a very negative environment, with a very low morale, which also leads to deputies jumping ship and more overtime. I know that you're thinking this sounds crazy. What, 4 more deputies? We don't have that kind of money. To these deputies, each shift, that's just one person that's saving their sinking ship. Albert Einstein said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting to see a different result. You guys literally hold the power to keep these men safe in your hands. I haven't seen the sheriff's study, but I imagine that it reveals a need for a greater than he has requested. And I imagine that he is requesting of you the absolute bare minimum to keep this ship from sinking. Despite what you may have thought going into this, this is where you are now, and putting a cork in it will not change the inevitable outcome. I do implore you to pray over your decisions and any decisions that you ever make, and let the Lord put on your heart what he will. And I appreciate your time, and I hope you can understand me. I cry.
You're fine, Andrea, and we appreciate your input, and appreciate you taking the time to come in and talk to us.
And I appreciate that you do see the need for more deputies, both, in the jail and on the road. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Jim, getting back to what I was saying for Rick, and to kind of go a little further, I think you go ahead. Mine would be to do the two correction deputies and 1 road deputy this year. Agreed. Down the road, year or two, the budget. Okay, there's no more money coming in, no one-time monies or whatever. That's where we put a hiring freeze on. I've worked in state government.
Currently have one.
But I'm saying you stick to it. There is no, through attrition, whatever it may be, hiring, attrition. We don't replace anyone. I'm not just talking the sheriff's department, but this is all departments. That's what it takes to balance the budget. Because, yeah, I understand the one-time money, but on the other hand, I understand what Andrea is saying, and I believe that. There's no reason I shouldn't. So that's my opinion. Yes, where was that, Jim?
Well, and we're gonna have a discussion that may, for a short period of time, may alleviate a little bit of our concerns in this decision, but we'll get there. In fact, okay, you just gave me that copy, Wendy, for that
Becky gave you
discussion.
a copy, of some from the health department, you mean?
Right.
Yeah, Becky, Kathy sent that to Becky and asked her to give you all a copy.
So I guess we can move forward, and we have that consensus of the 2 corrections, 1 patrol road, and of course also now my viewpoint, some of that cost of the extra dispatcher is going to be defrayed with discussions of a new contract. That's one thing that our partners in that realm has got to understand, that as our costs go up, their costs have to go up as well. So,
Jim, don't forget to ask Liram if he has any thoughts on that.
oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Liram, good morning.
Liram, wake up and unmute.
Yes, sir. I'm fully awake. Thank you. I do appreciate it, Wendy. What would you like my thoughts on?
Well, just as part of the overall discussion.
As far as the sheriff's requests, or
Yes.
that's the one that I'm sorry, I'm in a loud room here. I'm about to leave in a little bit because I got to go to college, but I've stated from the beginning that I have talked to the jail superintendent, and I kind of felt very uncomfortable with him telling me that we're putting safety in jeopardy, and I agreed with him that we need to hire at least, a couple more jail or bailiffs in the jail, but I'm not sure about the patrol. As I have not been part of the discussions because I've been absent, I don't know what my thoughts are on for the patrol request.
So my understanding, and John has testified multiple times, Liren, that we're about at the same situation with the patrol. And a lot of that is driven by the days accumulated within the contract on the personal time, which that boggles my mind that we're north of 800 days and how that's accumulated. But basically that we're in a similar situation in the patrol, that one additional patrol officer would allow for some flex. And so what we've done, of course, is the sheriff has assured us that overtime is going to come down. So we have reduced overtime budget by $100,000. We've reduced part-time cost by $46,000. And so now we're giving, my idea is we're going to give them the patrol person, and then we're going to have to hold feet to the fire to make sure that part-time line item and the overtime line item comes to fruition. So.
Jim,
Go ahead, Tom.
I don't disagree with you guys. We need these people. My concern, I guess, is, and I know I've been told repeatedly, we don't want to talk about history, but the same sheriff testified to us 3 times that new jail would not need any new people, extra people. This is the 2nd time we've added new people. We would be money ahead to have not built the damn thing, transport our prisoners to Oregon, and eliminate the whole staff. I would just like to see true transparency and honesty in what we're talking about, because none of us are close enough to know what's going on. I believe this young lady is very sincere in what she told us, and we're in a point we have to do something, but I don't like getting led down a path with a ring in our nose. I'm sorry.
I don't
feel very
disagree.
uncomfortable that we're getting honest information.
I found it interesting in her discussion. I'm sure that she had discussed things with her husband and whatnot, that this jail was designed as a four-man shift.
And I repeat, 3 times in public meetings, our sheriff told me, and the 3rd time he laughed at me for asking, we will not need any more people. And then he simply says I was wrong. And I'm sorry, I'll have that discussion with him anytime, but we can't do that. We can't continue to be told things. And then the county doesn't have the money to do that. We're not the state budget. And we're now in a bad situation. And I feel guilty that we got ourselves into it. We have to be careful where we're going down the road. I have some real concerns. Double-sided, okay? I think we have to take care of what we have to do, but I'm really concerned about where we're headed.
Yep, I agree. Let's move. So I think I'm hearing a consensus, reluctantly, though it may be, but let's move on. And let's just kind of go through each of the sections here of the budget. And if there's any concerns or things that adjustments need to be made, we'll stop and pause and talk about it.
I got a quick question for Paula. Paula, we have in here the minimum wage contingency that we have set aside. The question that I have is in the rest of the individual budgets, I know that numbers were plugged in there for potential increases in wages. My question is, do we have that double covered in here?
No.
Sure,
Yes.
100%. Final answer?
Well, it depends on what departments you're talking
Well,
about.
for example, treasurer's office, I'll just go to Cheers. Salary full-time went from 69,000 to 96,000.
Because I added a person back.
Okay.
I rehired
I was
Melissa's
just want to make
position.
sure we weren't double counting the raise plus. Okay.
I replaced
I was
Melissa.
hoping that it was a mistake.
Not so long. Good try.
Jim, may I ask before we do go any further?
Yep.
Follow with kind of what it looks like we're leaning towards proposal. How far are we in the hole right now? With if we hire 2 correction and 1 road deputy, have you figured,
And the dispatch.
And a dispatcher. Okay, so right now I made one other change since since that. So we are at 367 in the hole.
And
I added 45,000 back for the 9. Conversation with a couple of people. I had the cost of a dispatch software in capital. I've taken it out of capital and I put it back in the regular budget because there's 5 more years. It's an ongoing expense, probably will always be. So that's now in the budget. So that was a $45,000 change. Also, so now we are at 367 in the hole.
And keep in mind, that's with the change that Mr. Humphrey had recommended. So,
but also keep in mind too, if I'm not mistaken, that's shorting the health department 100,000.
Yes,
So
yes, it is.
If that ever gets back to the previous level of funding, that goes to 400 and some thousand.
and I'm sure we're going to have a discussion.
Well, I'm
with
just
the health
saying,
department. We'll get
We
there.
want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Right. No, understand. Okay, so let's just go down through the list.
Thank you.
And so we'll start off on bottom page 2, health insurance. I'm just going to go down through the departments and I'm going to ask any changes, any discussion needed, and we'll just go through. Okay, health insurance. Any changes in health insurance? County clerk.
I got a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Explain to me again, Paula, the difference between health insurance and on the second page, insurance. Because there was a big increase, like 40.
Yeah, so the health insurance is the difference between what we, the difference between what we're billed monthly and what actually comes out of payroll as far as the employer's cost. They don't seem to quite jive, and I know Jim has had some conversations, and maybe you're going to be included in the future, as to why what we're paying isn't exactly what we are being billed.
Okay,
Or the premiums that I have built in the payroll system.
but I guess my question is more specific. What's the first line says health insurance, and then the next line is insurance.
Is insurance. So so the health insurance line is the difference between the premiums that I have in the payroll system and the premiums we're actually being charged.
Okay.
Both of them coming from the insurance company. The second one that's just called insurance is the high deductible that the county is handling themselves.
Difference between what the employee pays and what is due is that number.
No. So we have a couple, so we have a high deductible.
Correct.
Okay, so the premium that the employees pay is a high deductible premium.
Correct.
But the county actually, the employees enjoy a low deductible plan. So that difference is the difference between the high deductible plan and the low deductible plan. And the county is paying
An actual premium or the deductible itself?
the deductible itself, because we don't pay a premium for that.
That's why I was at the one.
Right, so we don't pay a premium for that. So these are actual expenses that the county is paying to
Over and
bring
above.
the employees a low deductible plan.
And Paula, would that line item also include the administrative fees that we pay to that third-party vendor to oversee that, or is that?
No, that's in
okay.
the couple, that's in the lines, the couple lines
Okay.
above, right? Yeah,
But that's the part that we're paying to envision.
yeah, whatever, I don't remember the name of the third party, but we're paying it. But what we're really doing is we're paying doctors directly.
We're paying the difference. This
Oh.
line item here is the difference between the $500 employee deductible and the $6,000
Correct.
plan deductible.
Correct,
And that number could either go up or down depending on how
Correct.
much is.
correct.
Okay.
Yes. That is the cost of insurance between a $500 deductible and a $6,000 deductible or whatever. I don't think I have my correct, but
Cost of the deductible difference.
it's the actual cost of the deductible difference,
Okay.
correct?
And it's now your job to make sure that we
Well,
come with those numbers.
Again, my question went back to, and I don't know if we ever got an answer on this, is at what point in time did we as the board decide that 500 was going to be the number? Or was that just, we just always have left it at that?
Good question.
Well, I'm asking, anybody know the answers?
Rick, I can't tell you the year. As Marilyn explained to you the last meeting when this came up, it was essentially something that had been used. And when we changed to this high deductible plan, the goal was, and the board did vote on this, I can't tell you the exact year, I can go back and look it up, but the board voted to approve the high deductible plan because the high deductible plan, of course, comes with a lower premium cost. And so the idea was that we would save enough money on the premium cost to be able to afford to pay the difference in the deductible. But it was a board approved plan, but it's been something that we've carried forward for years. I'm going to say maybe 10 years.
And I guess that's my question, because in my own personal experience, my deductible has gone from $1,000, we'll use as an example, to 6,000, but it didn't go in leaps, and it just went multiple years. It kept changing. So my question is, at what point in time did we approve, or what did we approve, and was it 6,000 or was it a $3,000 deductible? I guess is what I'm trying to figure out. So maybe that's a separate discussion that we need.
Yeah,
to look into.
I think that we could,
I
we
just
could
want to
spend all
understand,
morning
because
long.
this is a big number.
It's a big number.
So-
I agree, but you know, we could spend all morning talking about.
I get it. I'm
insurance
just
and-
trying to get-
and
yeah.
into
Just trying to
the
get a little-
afternoon.
little bit of
So,
history.
but,
Okay.
No,
move on.
no, I'm good, and I'm glad you're asking the questions, Rick, because there needs to be a lot of questions, because then we get in the whole thing. I mean, you hit on, and Wendy hit on administrative costs, and we've got to understand all these layers.
Yeah.
And I'm
Pulling
not
back the
sure.
onion and
Yeah, yeah, and there needs to be a good examination of our insurance costs, both for the county and to the employee. And so, you know, those discussions need to be, so I don't mean to shortchange you.
Nope,
It's just
not
that we're gonna run out of time.
I got you.
So, okay, but no changes, Ms. Treasurer, on that. So county clerk? Anything under county clerk? Election. Circuit clerk?
Excuse me, Mac, Jim, on election expense,
Yep.
is that with the old? You know, we're updating the,
Yep, that was in capital, and
Okay.
then that was.
so that's
that
not gonna
was in-
change this at all.
That won't change this at all. And
Okay,
then,
just
then
double
of
check.
course, you know, we will tomorrow night approve the expenditure of the ARPA money for. new equipment.
Right, okay. Just double checking, making sure. I was hoping.
Yeah, yeah. Circuit clerk. Treasurer's Department.
Okay, just get started.
we don't have all day, so.
Sheriff's Department, and I'm just going to highlight some changes that we had made that I think Paula has included in that, and I referred to it, the salary part-time from 196 down to 150, salary overtime from 300 down to 2.
So Paula,
Yes.
got 300 in overtime here. If we drop that down to 200, does that lower our, because you've got the change on the first page and the question.
Right. So it doesn't change the bottom line. I will just be eliminating the change on page 2 and pulling it down onto whatever page the sheriff's department lands on. Yeah. Or
Okay.
I was just trying to highlight it in that top there just to, anyway.
No further discussion in the sheriff's area?
Well, okay, new hire costs. 20,000, does that still stay with the adding these people?
Training costs.
I can't answer that. The new hire cost, if it needs to be that high or not. It's a $4,000 increase. He's at 10,000 right now. It's hard to say.
Well,
Well, and also he put in an additional $20,000 in training and conferences.
I was just looking at that and I was also looking at gas and oil. I know price of gas has gone up. We're trending right now, or as of this update at 56,000.
I think a little bit of that is reflecting having more cars.
Well,
So it-
but here's the thing, okay, this is right back. We're not talking about adding more cars. We're talking about making up for overtime and stuff. So you're not gonna add additional cars. The cars aren't gonna be running more. Am I misunderstanding that or not?
Two cars.
They're not gonna be out on the road though. They're gonna be covering for all this overtime. So it's not like you're gonna have additional cars out there. You're just gonna be replacing the overtime, is my understanding.
He talked to us, he plans on that deputy having a car, he insisted that deputy.
Yeah, but that car, what Rick's point is that car is gonna be still.
It's
not
gonna be
on
off,
the
shut
road.
off. It's gonna be covering for the overtime that
Okay.
we're
Right.
incurring.
Okay.
So it's not an increase in gas costs. It shouldn't be.
Shouldn't, I would agree, shouldn't.
So back to my point is, where are we trending right now in that line item? Paul, do you know?
That line item right now is trending for gas. So gas and oil, he's at 56,000 so far for the year, so
Another 15,000.
What was
You should-
that her hitting her
Wouldn't that
imaginary
be approximately
calculator, her
another
air
15,000?
calculator?
that was.
Damn, I wish my mind worked that way.
That was, yeah, wouldn't that be nice? No, that was how many more months do I have in the year?
No, I understand.
That's
Like
what I thought.
September, October, November.
It'd be another 15,000 by the end of the year, roughly, right?
Yeah, about 75,000 for the year, I think is what
Right.
he's gonna be.
So we could shave
So he
that
was
down.
probably, he was cushioning. What he was doing was anticipating. you
So
know,
we can find 10,000 there and knock it down to 80.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. And one of the things, and I'll say this publicly, you know, that as you know, when these line items and we got this budget and department heads come to, and they talk to Paula and, well, I'm running short in this area. You know, we can adjust this budget. This budget is our guide and it's hard and fast for the department heads to run. But you know, from the board perspective, you know, we can adjust this. This is something that, you know, some people act like that this is hard and fast. Well, it is in the sense it's a legal document, but there is a process that we take, which we've done in the past
Yes,
and we'll do in the future, and to adjust the budget in these
Yes.
line items.
yes, we can adjust it. The only thing that we cannot do is change the bottom line.
Correct.
So it has to be within, we have to have it come from somewhere else or a new revenue source to cover it.
Correct.
But we can't go further in the hole than
Correct.
we already started.
And thank you for pointing that out.
So then also in the same department, auto repair, currently we're at 17,000. That's been bumped up to 35,000. I mean, we're replacing these cars. I guess I could live with the 35,000 if we cut back on the purchase of the new vehicles or extend them out another year, but not both.
Hold that thought. Because I think when we get to capital, we may have that may be one we may want to leave there for some flexibility.
Capital doesn't help us though.
So the only change that we have here is the gas.
At this point in time.
Yep. So $10,000 off.
Okay.
Well, that's
That's
what we do.
Oh, yeah, no.
Coroner's office, what's the change again in the salary between full-time and part-time? I don't remember.
Between full-time and part-time. Oh,
21.
we just didn't get full-time or part-time. Full-time is, so last year, I think it was budgeted as a full position and then it changed and,
Or was it, you wanted to put more people on call?
no, that would be part-time salary or under contractual. Both of those are, so the full-time salary is for Lori, and I think it was budgeted earlier in the year, and then, there was changes made and whatever, so the 10,000 is Lori, that's her 25% that she gets charged a year from her full salary. The salary part-time is his people that work on weekends, and it didn't get budgeted last year, and whether or not it's part of the 41,000 potentially, but I think he's probably going to spend about 18,000 doing it. So now he's got a budget there. Whether or not the 41,000 needs to stay where it's at, I don't know. I can't.
Saying contractual services and the salary part-time are the same line item?
No, because contractual services is if he needs to hire a,
I'll just,
yeah, and all that kind of stuff. Right. So I don't,
And as when Jess came in, he talked about, we questioned him on that line item and it was just. it's
Yeah, I
pulling
just
the number
spent so
out
long
there.
ago,
Shot in the dark, what do you have to
Right.
do?
So
So-
if you look at his history, he was at 42.5 and 19, then he was down to 36.
Right.
You know. he's
right.
at
I mean, right
26.
now, he's on track, if you average it out, to spend about 36,000 for this year. So
So when you look at that 26 number to 41, you think that kind of sticks out in your eye, but it really is.
I mean, you could shave it by 5 if you really feel, and if he has
Okay,
potentially.
anything? Okay, move on. ROE. State's Attorney's Office. Public Defender.
Go back to the state's attorney again.
Yes, sir.
Contractual services, what was that line item? Is that for hiring outside counsel or?
Stuff like that, I can't remember exactly.
I just, again, we're at 7,800 this year. I didn't know if we got something coming up that we're expecting a large, but it jumped 10,000 over 21 to 50,000, so.
I'm sorry, what? I don't remember.
I don't
I don't
remember
know if
Charlie
there
making
was-
a comment. That doesn't mean he didn't make that or why he
Right.
put that in there, but I can't remember now.
At the
I didn't
time,
make any notes
at
on
the time
that.
He told us it made sense. I remember that.
I just, like I said, it's a big increase from where we're
Yeah.
at currently, and I couldn't remember if you said we had something coming up or.
Rick, do you want me to make a quick phone call over there?
I think Bob is.
Oh, got it.
All right, well, let's move on. Public Defender. Maintenance Department. County Board.
Like to remove completely the per diem wages line item.
Sure. Wow. we can make some choices, but I guess-
Bob, did you have a clarification?
Yeah, I don't know if it's working or not. I just called Charlie and he said that's for, if he has trials, he has to hire expert witnesses or something like that. And he said he never knows what to put in there, but he's gonna need it if he needs it. So he just soon leave it alone. So.
Okay. Fair enough. Thanks for checking.
Does it look like under the maintenance, electricity? Way to, Rick? I see that he did drop it back down, okay, from 145 to 130, but it still seems high.
Right,
130.
right now, we're tracking for it to be,
It's been an extremely hot year with air, so I can imagine it's up. But
yeah, oh, wait, that's not, let me fix something here. It's tracking to be about 125 right now.
Yeah.
100 and,
yeah, isn't really there.
So back to your statement, Paula, I guess, are we better off to cut some of these numbers as to where we realistically think they are and put extra monies in the contingency?
You could do that. That's definitely a strategy and one that maybe makes a
I mean,
little
I
bit.
hear everybody,
It makes
nobody
sense.
wants to be short, I get it.
Yep,
So they're
yep,
all
yep.
adding,
Yep.
we'll say 10% just to make sure they're covered. In
That's
reality,
logical.
should we be trying to trend a little closer to what history has shown us and then put some money in?
It's a good strategy. I think it's a good strategy.
That's kind of what I do. As I go through these things, I try to take a look at, and if something looks out of whack, I'll do a percentage and that's the value of having the history. But some of these things that are so volatile,
Right.
It's just like what we were talking about with state's attorney. I mean, we could cut that back. And then with the understanding that if Charlie has something come along, that we can do a transfer. The danger with that is exactly what Paula referred to, is that you got to remember, you can't cut your shorts too much because that bottom number is what we're held to.
Sure. That's why I say
By
put it in
statute.
contingency. We're not actually taking it out of the budget. We're just moving it.
That's right.
So that.
And
we can
I'd
track things
be
a little
fine. I would be personally, I'd be fine if you want to chip away at some of that. Robert, go ahead.
I like that idea, but the problem is then they gotta come to you and ask for it. And when they need it, they need it. I don't know about Charlie, he'll have time, but some of these departments, then they gotta come and ask to have it moved. And, that's time consuming if you're in the wrong time of the month. I get what you're doing.
And I can appreciate that, Bob. My concern is that if we don't, it just has everybody paying more closer attention to what they're actually spending, I guess, where they can kind of foresee things coming down the road rather than just spend.
Yeah. And then to that point, and I'm sorry, Bob, but have you guys ever?
That's Mr. Rudolphi.
Thank you, sir. Have you guys ever considered a bonus to department heads who come in under budget? In other words, make them think about their budget. Make them think about what it is they spend every day, such that you don't want to pack their budget and then they come in under. But if you're running it tight to the department, you put the other money in contingency, but you say, hey, you come in, there's a percentage there. I don't know legally if you can do that, but it's a strategy to make people accountable. It's a strategy to make them work, to make them think every time they spend that money.
That's something we could definitely explore. I statutorily, whether you could do
I've never
that.
come across anything that says you can't, except for with elected officials.
That's where I was going. That'd be the
So
problem.
I never get one, but Wendy could.
Give Wendy the whole budget then.
I'm all for that.
But that's not a bad idea, Paul. Incentivizing is always the carrot rather than the stick. Sure.
Rick, kind of getting to your point also, I brought this up in past years and seemed to Everybody said, oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea, but then you never did anything with it. Where we're at today, we decide how much each, if it's 3%, 5%, they need to take a cut, leave it up to Paula. Leave it up to Nancy down in hers, whoever. Where are you gonna come up, where are you gonna cut 5% from your budget? We need to balance it. This goes to the sheriff and everyone. Fine with the new hires and everything. But so in other words, you should know your budget no better than anyone. You sit there and look at it and say, yeah, I don't need this much. I don't need this, or maybe that much in training. Let them make the decision where they cut the percentage, whatever that percentage may be throughout the county to get to that with everyone's budget. Does that sound feasible, or if they don't, we cut it?
When we get to the end of this page, we're gonna be running out of options to look at. And
I
we're
know.
gonna have to figure out what we're gonna do, so.
Mr. Valley.
Yeah, thank you. My experiences have shown that every department has this money at the end of the year, they can't roll it over, so they spend it, no matter, on stuff that's not necessary. I know in the past where I worked, all of a sudden we got real busy at budget thing because they had to blow the rest of the money. If somehow they could, if they didn't spend it this year, it would still be available for them next year, not taken away from them. And this is what each unit always, if I don't spend it, I won't even get it next year. So if they have some kind of security on that, it might, where they don't need it, they don't need it, and they know that's available next year yet.
Jim, in the past, it seems like our department heads have been good about giving us back money at the end of the year. And we reward that by, of course, not cutting their budget and working with them. Our department heads, Dave, have been really good historically here in the county about giving us back money that's not needed and putting it back in the general
And
fund.
Tom, I think to your point, I think that's a fair statement. But again, this leads to where we're at today.
Yes.
The budget has grown to the point where nobody wants to run short. And so that's why the money comes back.
Yeah.
And so as this is a tool to kind of give us a snapshot where we're at, I don't know that we're doing ourselves any justice by
No, I
adding.
I agree that. I'm just to Dave's point.
Yeah.
And I think, Doug, look back, we have gone back, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, and told the department heads we had to cut them by 5% or whatever. And we let them, you tell us how you want to cut it, or we'll cut it. You won't like it. And none of us work in those departments. So, it's up to them. And then if I can address yet the idea of putting money into the contingency fund isn't a bad idea. But what concerns me is if we've got $50,000 in a contingency fund and somebody comes along and wants it, and we've forgotten that Charlie might need that 10,000 later, and all of a sudden we're in trouble. It's a fine line we walk, but just comments on those 3 points. I'm sorry.
Yep. And I think that's a good point, Tom, because when you make those kind of changes, you got to change the way you're thinking as
Right.
you go through the budget, and you have to remember those things. So good point.
Bob, you have something?
Well, I agree. And, I understand what you guys are talking about and what you want to do, but for Charlie, for example, or even our county clerk's office with the elections, she's not going to spend that 50,000 on something else. She's got to spend it on if they have to have a third election. And like Charlie, he's not going to have an expert witness if you don't have a trial. So I think our department heads do a good job. I think you got to trust them.
I agree. Okay, county board. Any changes?
Paul wanted to raise it for DM. You know what you said?
Yeah,
I
heard that.
erase it? Oh, is that what you heard? I think erase was the word I was using, not
Okay, let's
raise.
move along. Probation department, Stacy's on. Any changes in probation?
Only if she's on there to talk to us.
All right, planning department. Zoning. We were made aware, and this may be a piece that does get moved. Wendy, do you want to share with the committee on, in regards to that's the stipend situation?
Yes, so to elaborate or expand upon your earlier conversation about Alice's salary and the additional stipend that she gets for doing the clerical duties of zoning and planning, I was asked to do a little research, and I did do a little research. And as it turns out, we're not exactly following the Department of Labor laws with regard to how we're treating her. Now that that individual is also employed with Lee County and doing these duties at night, we are obligated to pay that person overtime. Doesn't matter that we call it a separate duty. She's an employee. And if she works night hours, then we're supposed to be paying overtime to her. So we do need to do some reorganization with regard to that. The conversation has been, and I have not yet had an opportunity to talk to Dee. This just came up this morning, but that we roll the planning part-time and the zoning part-time that was allocated to pay that clerical person for those meetings, to roll that into the current full-time employee's salary and potentially reorganize her job description into an exempt position, which I think it's appropriate and allowable under the laws that we do that, but it's not going to change the bottom line of the budget. Bottom line, it's just going to reallocate this into the zoning department full-time salary line item.
So she attends the zoning meetings, correct? And those meetings are published and know the dates. They're not just random meetings.
Well, actually, they do come up because petitioners will come in randomly and say, I want to file a petition for a wind farm or whatever. So it is pretty random. We don't know.
But they're not held like that day, so they're scheduled down the road.
You're right. It's
Okay.
not that day. I thought you were talking annually, Rick. So
Yeah. So I guess my point is that rather than just pay the overtime, we have the ability to manage that department. And if you have a meeting coming up, say it's a Thursday night or whatever. So on Thursday, maybe Alice doesn't come in at 8 o'clock. She comes in at 9 o'clock and then attends that meeting for her 8-hour day, that extra hour. And if it runs over, then she gets the overtime after that. But it's just a matter of managing your department. So.
the challenge, and I don't want to speak on behalf of Dee, but the challenge with that is depending upon the number of meetings that person would have and the number of hours she would then be out of the office, we have to be careful, because if Dee goes on vacation for a week, the idea of having that person was to have a backup person. Well, if that person needs to take off because we don't want to be in an overtime situation, then you're going to add to the management complexity of that position. It may not be that easy. There also is the issue that was brought up last week, and that is, do we have, albeit a verbal employment contract with this person that we're violating if we suddenly take away something that she's been receiving? So bottom line is, what I would say is we need to have more conversation about this. I don't think it's going to affect the bottom line budget right at this point in time, because we need to have some more conversation about it. I just want to make you aware of it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Wendy, but when you were explaining it, did you just say move that into her full-time salary because you could see her job as exempt?
Yeah, but potentially the question has come up and the conversation is her position an exempt position, not an hourly position?
That's Rick. I wanted to kind of, maybe if
Yes.
you didn't hear that.
No, I heard.
Okay.
So then if it was,
Because
yeah.
if it's exempt, it doesn't matter how many hours you work, you're just
But I
working.
don't.
But that
My
doesn't change.
understanding of exempt, I don't know that you can be an office of one. I think you have to actually supervise personnel.
It depends on the level of authority that you have, honestly. So I think the position warrants it, given the renewable energy coordinator title that we've assigned to that person. I think it would definitely fit that, but that's not a decision for me to make. I just wanted to make you aware of the idea that the way it is right now, we're not following Illinois Department of Labor laws, in that we have to pay this individual overtime now that she is a full-time employee with Lee County.
The problem with exempt status, though, too, is they don't have to work a full 8 hours neither to receive full pay.
And that does go back to the management of the office holder there, absolutely.
But for I guess to bring it back to this meeting, there's probably no need to change the budget other than maybe rearrange some line items, but bottom line isn't going to be affected.
So I guess we just need to make note of that and I wanted to make sure that there wasn't any, because if all of that was going to roll into, then the insurance line item might have to be adjusted and all that. But to your guys' knowledge, because if that's getting rolled into base salary, the stipend was the retirement and that was still.
It's already being charged there
Oh,
anyway,
okay.
so it doesn't
All right,
matter.
I wasn't sure if that stick, because sometimes that you throw the stipend and it doesn't affect. Okay, so, okay, got it. So bottom line is no changes there. So, but we will see probably, depending on how the discussions go, we'll see those line items go away. Okay. Note of that. All right, moving on, judges. IT.
Hey, Jim, while you're on IT, I was asked many meetings ago to follow up, and I just wanted to give you a heads up that I did do that. Remember, we have transferred all of the telephone expense now into the IT budget, and what the request was of me is to make sure that we weren't, didn't have that double charged in the individual budgets. Every department head did respond back to me, and every department head confirmed that their individual telephone budgets were for things like cell phones or tablets, or in the case of the assessment office, it's a alarm system. So I could find nothing that said there was any double charge for the telephone line item.
Very good, thank you.
Professional services, what was that again? Does anybody remember?
In which one?
IT. It's gone from $156 to $50,000.
I don't know for sure, and I can follow up with Paul real quick, but I think it has to do with the costs for our telephone internet system. Different than the telephone line item. It seems like there was something regarding that, but how about if I give Paul a quick call and follow up?
Do that.
Yep.
I think you're right, Wendy, that's what, but
I could be
like the
making
other,
that,
I'll
I could
have
be
a note
making that
on
up too,
that.
so I better follow up. I'll be back.
Okay. Thank you.
And then we added head count there, is that correct? In the IT department?
Yes. Okay, Wendy will get our answer. Let's move on. Assessor.
Software licensing is the only one. I assume that increase of 40,000.
Mhm. Yeah, and we talked about that. That's a known expense. 911. And this does not have the additional dispatch officer from page 2.
Not yet.
How about the reduction of overtime? If
That's
we-
sort of built into the 45,000 I have on page 2 is actually net of that. So all of that will be adjusted by, because there'll be an increase in health insurance, a decrease in overtime, coming to whatever that 45,000 I calculated was.
Oh, on this page, we got a capital transfer out of 750,000.
Yes.
So
400 of that is your zoning fees, basically, so they don't ever touch. 350 of it. So I collapsed in those other 5 funds, including Social Security and IMRF. So in those funds, there's about 375,000 in those funds right now. So next year I won't be, so it's like a one-time expense again. I can charge next year's FICA and IMRF to their old funds to the tune of 375,000. The next year, it's going to have to come out of the general fund. So I put it as a transfer out this year as a holding place for next year. Following me? Yeah. So that's what the other 350 is.
So with the changes that we've made so far, where are we at?
363,000 negative.
Okay. All right. Let's move on into the other funds.
I don't know if there's anything else.
Yeah, there is.
Is there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep going.
All right then.
Just trust me.
All right. I'm trusting.
Trust me, yeah, oh, boy.
You know, at this point, having said that, I could tell a Judy Bart's Pinka story, but I will defer. IMRF fund,
So that now is in the general fund with the exception of like 275,000 that's going to be charged there. So that one's going away, as is the insurance fund,
and insurance.
as is Social Security, as is social services, and as is cooperative extension fund. All of those on that page are now in the general fund, with the exception of using up whatever fund balance they had left.
So by doing this, though, I mean, we've been whittling away at the balance on these funds. At some point in time when they run out,
Which is going to be next year,
it'll be next year.
which is why I put
This,
the,
this number, negative number will compound.
no, because no, everything. No. And that's why, that's
because
why,
the levy, we're still going to be levying for
Right.
these particular.
We're still gonna
things.
be
It's just-
levying.
Understand, but we're not. The fund is whittling, the cost of the fund, the operation of the fund is taken away from the cash balance. At some point in time, you either have to lower your expenses.
I think at that time you zero out the balance and then you go to the general fund. So
That's my point, though. At some point in time, it's gonna take away more from the general fund.
I've already calculated all of that in when I rolled it in. That's why we had the 375 or the 350 or whatever going to the transferring out.
And I understand that, but my point is, at some point in time, if it's whittling away at these. This is,
I took it into account.
okay.
Trust me.
Second
There's
time I
that
heard
Judy
that.
Bart, the Pinka story. You're gonna make me tell that story sooner or later.
Okay, go ahead.
Not yet.
I know what his concern is, and I took it into account when I rolled all that stuff together. So we should be okay.
Okay.
So all of those are gone, so move past that page. They don't exist anymore. Or is,
Indemnity fund. Any changes there? Vector automation fund. Bed administration fund. GIS fund. Special recording fund. Vital records automation fund. Animal control.
Contractual services, what was that line item? And again, these don't really affect our general fund this year, but
contractual services under animal. I'm not sure, but I think it's probably vet's costs. Oh, vet expenses above that. Not sure.
That's
I
right.
I don't know why the increase necessarily, but I can tell you that what she uses that fund for, at least in part, is she contracts independent contractor agreements with individuals to come in on nights and weekends and take care of the dogs when nobody else is there. So I don't know if that was just a change in how she was managing that or not, but I know that's what she uses the fund for.
Increase in salary for the officer.
That is getting her up to speed. So while I took it out in the general fund, it also affects this,
That in the contingency line item.
it wasn't in the general fund contingency line item. It's in this fund. So I didn't create a contingency in here to make up for that. It's just still in the wages. So depending on what raises people get,
Okay.
that will be reflected there. Because it's not in the general fund. Yeah. This was, I think, the only fund was affected by giving raises.
Okay, then the pet population fund, the note that I have here is animal control, and this has to do with building. Owes capital $116,500.
Oh, yes.
I just want to
Ballpark right
verify
around
my,
there.
my
Yeah.
notes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
good morning, Arlen.
Good morning.
Okay, corner fund. Public safety fund. DUI fund. Resties medical fund. Commissary fund. We'll just skip down through all these, all the police fund, tow fund. You can see vehicle fund has been, just pay attention to where the carry out is. EMA grant.
And yep, I mean, I guess that's my concern is that all these funds were taken away and we're depleting the balances. At some point in time, when that balance is zero, these are all going to come to the general fund for.
They weren't depleting that fast, and I upped it. I upped the expenses in the general fund and reflected all of that. And then when oh, you're not necessarily asking about the ones that have already collapsed. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about these special funds here.
These don't get any revenues from anything else. When they don't get fees, they don't spend the money.
There's salaries in some of them is my point. Go back to pet or the animal control, for example.
Yes.
They're taken away from the fees to help offset some of the salaries. And that fund is being depleted at some point in time when they get zero.
So in the past, yeah, I mean, yes, there is the possibility that, and then you're probably going to have to up fees again. Cover that.
Okay.
Or you're right, you might have to take money out of the general fund. But from a projection standpoint, I don't think you're going to be in that position for quite a while, if ever. For animal control. No, I don't think so. Okay.
Necessarily agree with that, but
All right, well,
Well, I think that comes when those funds hit that point.
why?
Especially
I'm throwing up
those-
the red flag.
Oh,
that,
right.
You know, as
No.
we're negative right now,
Right.
and we've got this facing us
Mhm.
at some point in time, whether it's a year or two or
Okay, but
three,
right-
whatever.
right now we have animal control actually gaining in cash balance at the end of the year. It's going up. It's a negative, but it's because it's a credit balance, which is a positive from a fund balance standpoint. Sorry.
Because you have to think like an accountant.
I have to think like an accountant, sorry. So right now, what they've got coming in projected fees for this next year is actually going to increase their fund balance from 15 to 50. They're to the good by 33,000. And they're just about covering themselves in pet population too. They're just kind of staying even.
Okay, we're on page 12. Highway Solid Waste Fund. Just as a thought, so where are we trending for this year?
For highway?
On solid waste fund.
Oh, on solid waste.
Yeah, sorry.
So, I mean, revenues are up. So we still have a quarter to collect. Yes, we have a quarter. No, I think that 361 is, I think the 361 in FY year to date is 3/4 worth. So I think we have one more quarter to collect before this fiscal year ends. And so we're going to be 100, 150 to the good.
Over the 21 budget amount.
Correct. Which is why we increased, hoping that holds, that they're going to continue to use that landfill. From a monetary standpoint, we're hoping they continue to use that landfill.
Correct.
Yeah, that's why we upped the fees from 240 to 350.
Highway fund. Okay, my adjustment, I made a written adjustment on this, so the bottom line there is 386, 650. So we had a carry in of 875 and a estimated cash balance carry out 488, 350.
What 5,000 did you change? Because I've got bottom line of 381, we're $5,000 difference. So you must have changed.
Yeah, so I think that was, it was 548 on the equipment and furniture. Was a minor
548.
adjustment, a $5,000
Okay.
addition there.
Okay.
Right. So on that, on the highway department equipment and furniture line item, that went up to 548.
Thanks.
Now, I know this is tedious, we do this, but this is why we do this.
I just want to make sure I have.
Yeah, right.
What
right.
you're expecting
I'm
it to be.
amazed that I had something that you didn't actually.
I'm like, wait a minute.
Yay, win for Jim. Okay, special bridge. No changes. Highway federal aid matching. No changes. County motor fuel tax. Okay, page 14. Health Department, TB fund. Health Department fund. Now, right now, so we're going to have a fair amount of discussion here. And I'm going to let Wendy lead that. Kathy is on. And as you all know, we did move their levy down $100,000. And so there was a little, one thing we need to clean up. There was a little bit when Kathy, last discussion that we had,
we had a little bit of difference in the end balance of the health department, which we're showing of $720,000. And I think we got that cleaned up. So let's start. No, I have a treasurer that's frowning. I don't like that. So why are you frowning?
Where are you getting your 720,000 at?
Okay, so we had an estimated cash balance of 800,000,
Yeah,
and then an ending estimated cash balance of 903,464. And then I can't remember where that came out of, but anyway, there was an adjustment made, and I'm showing the end carry out of 720. Am I in error?
well, okay, probably not, but do you still have the property tax levy at 556,000?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So give me what your estimated cash is. It 718,981?
Okay, say that again.
718,980, the very bottom number, the
Right.
ending estimated cash balance is at 718,981.
Well, that's probably where I got the 720. I just.
Yes.
I had 720 as an estimated number.
That's what I.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Excuse me, I just want to clarify because I did give you a figure a couple meetings ago that was too low, and what had happened was we didn't account for the tax installment that was yet to come in. So I apologize for that.
There we go.
Because it's not consistent throughout the year. We only start getting it in July and end in November. So it's,
It happens
Yeah.
to the best of us, Kathy. No worries.
yes. Because I don't give it to her all year, because I don't get it all year. Just saying.
Right. Okay, so that 720 is actually 718.
981. I just wanted to make sure that you guys didn't somewhere have a change that I didn't have
Yeah,
again.
right.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
718,981.
81 is what I have
Okay.
before we take anything out of her tax levy.
And then that's before we take anything out of the tax levy. So with our anticipated reduction of the tax levy of 556, that's actually going to be 446.
456, yes.
Yeah, or
Which brings us down
56.
to 618,981, which
Gotcha.
620,000 ballpark, yeah.
There you go. All right.
Could I say one more thing? I'm sorry. I just wanted to reference the chart that Becky gave you all, I believe. It's the same information I gave you a couple of meetings ago, but I just thought it might be helpful to see it in front of you, how our levy is distributed. Once we get it, a chunk comes back to the county, behavioral health, and then it shows you what remains for us. So I just wanted you to have that.
So now, is this what she's referring to?
Yes,
Does everybody have this?
I
Everybody
hope
has
so.
this. Okay. All right. Well, that's going to lead us now into a discussion, and I'm going to hand the discussion over to Wendy because her and Kathy had a meeting the other day, and I wasn't involved in that. So I'm gonna.
And actually, I've had a meeting with Arlen, and this conversation or this concept has come up a number of different times specific to ARPA. So if you recall, again, ARPA guidelines are that we spend the $6.6 million on items that mitigate COVID or mitigate the negative impact of COVID, or there are some infrastructure, water, sewer, et cetera. So with that in mind, one of the conversations that's been talked about, and it's Arlen actually referred to it at your last meeting, is the idea that if we were to pay with ARPA funding the salaries of those individuals at the county that are mitigating COVID. Let's talk janitorial staff that are doing cleaning for us. Let's talk the health department. The sheriff brought up potentially there's somebody in his department, perhaps Kevin in EMA. If we were to choose to spend some of that or allocate some of that money to these salaries, then it would free up that money for other items. Specific to the health department, because they have their own levy. There is something to be considered, which is to reduce the health department's levy with the understanding that we would pay the health department salaries using ARPA funding or a part of their salaries. Because again, it's only to the extent that that employee is mitigating COVID. So if there's some there that aren't doing anything with COVID, they wouldn't be eligible. But we could take part or all of the salaries that are there and pay them through the ARPA. What that would do is allow us as a finance committee or as a county board to reduce the levy request to the health department for a single year. It's not a long-term solution. And then that would free up that levy money to go into county general. And then you would have some additional county general money to work with in the budget. Obviously, this is a 1 year, maybe 2 years, but I'm hopeful that by 2023's fiscal budget, we aren't fighting COVID. So at this point in time, we're talking about a 1 year solution. But potentially their levy request is at 556,000. You just adjusted that. You could further reduce that down. I did bring that concept to Kathy at the health department and did talk to her about that. She's not opposed to it. She thinks that and Kathy, I don't want to speak on your behalf, but what we talked about is that maybe there's some mutual gain items that we could, she understands the flexibility of being able to use that levy money in the county general fund or for other items. So she would be very much interested in having that conversation furthered. The challenge for you all is that this decision has to be made before you put forth your levies for this given year. So by October, when you put forth your levy that has to lay over for a month, we need to know what the feedback is going to be of this committee and the board. And obviously the ARPA committee as well has to weigh in on this. At this point in time, all I wanted to do is throw it out on the table as a concept to kind of have you be thinking about it and let you know that it is an opportunity that has been identified.
Gotcha. All right.
Is there any estimate of what we think will be our funds that'll be eligible? I mean, 100,000, 200, do we have any idea?
You mean specific for the health department?
Yes.
Well, their levy is 556,000. So you probably wouldn't take it to zero, but you could take, say, $500,000 and reallocate it to the general fund levy and take it out of the health department levy with the understanding that ARPA would pay the salaries of the health department. And by the way, it's not just salaries, it's salaries and benefits. So it can be, and by the way, we're not talking about just the health department. We are talking janitorial, but janitorial is already under the general fund. So we could free up some money of the general fund by paying ARPA salaries of janitorial as well.
Well, I guess the question would be to Kathy is, do you have an estimate of what would be our funds that could be replaced?
Kathy, did you hear the question?
Yes, and we haven't run those figures, but I would anticipate it would be, I mean, if you look at what our salaries equate, all said, I wouldn't think 500,000 would be unrealistic.
Is that what you're asking, Arlen? Is would that 500,000 offset with paying the salaries out of ARPA? Because yes, it would. In fact, their salaries and if you include benefits are going to be probably closer to $1 million, 1.2. It's just something, it's a tool in the toolbox. It's going to be a short-term solution, but it's a tool in the toolbox to be considered. I just wanted you to be aware of it.
Well, it just allows you to put that amount of money into a savings for future use type of a deal.
Right.
Mr. Humphrey.
We think I got something to say? Or?
You were gearing up. I could see it.
I guess I understand the thought process here and I can appreciate the creativity. And my concern is that I don't know that this committee can make decisions based on the ARPA committee that's going to allocate the funds. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse unless we're trying to push the ARPA committee in a certain direction. And I don't know if that's our business.
Well, we had a,
the workshop that Wendy has coming up in October is going to determine that.
Right.
I don't think it's an unreasonable thing that the outcome of that is going to be designating how much money what's the division of labor there? There's going to be so much that's going to come back to our local government, so much to the committee. The ARPA committee is going to kind of flush that out for us so we have some guidance.
At the end of the day, my concern is long-term is that, we're putting Band-Aids on things here and we're trying to get from one year to the next. And I don't hear any long-term plans. And that's my concern. I mean, I understand what we're trying to do and I can appreciate it. And, we have to continue to operate. I get it, but we're still not bringing any long-term solutions to the table. And that's concerning. So, I mean, whether you take it from this fund or that fund or one-time money, the end result's still the same. We're still coming up short to operate on an annual basis.
The one thing I would it took us a number of years of taking out of whether it was solid waste out of capital. It took a number of years to get us to the situation where we're at. We're not going to, as Rome was not built in a day, we're not going to climb out of the hole in a day either. So little by little.
Life machine or something?
So. Yes.
I
Mrs.
realize
Treasurer.
that not everybody can see this, but I pulled this together the other day. These are the fund reserves and where they've gone since. It starts here in 2007. And while the highway fund is not done much and we have lost some ground in solid waste because we spent some of that, your capital has increased and your general fund balance has increased over these, they jig jog around, but the net result is over 13 years, they are higher than where they were in 2007. So I was just.
Wanted to point that out.
And I'm not disagreeing with that. I mean, numbers don't lie. The concern is that it's been brought to our attention numerous times that we're not setting any money aside for building maintenance and future. And we just keep continuing to take from the capital fund to survive. So, I mean, I don't disagree with any of what's being said. I just, like I said, it's
well, I think it's incumbent upon this body and the county board as a whole that we approach our finances conservative. And that's what you're advocating. And it's how conservative we need to be. It's how where the last couple of years we've planned for the worst, hope for the best, and so far that's come to fruition. And that's reflected in what Paula just talked about. So what I'm seeing in our bottom line numbers is that we're continuing that. We're looking at what our expenditures are, how that matches up with our current expenses. We're down, and we need, my view, as Paul has pointed out, we can adopt a negative budget. I don't like that. I'm not going to start that. I've never done that. And so how do we get there? And so, what we're talking about in adjusting this levy does help us, bring the general budget of the county.
Well, if that's the case, because I don't want to speak for the ARPA committee. If we're going to do that, then we need to just take the money back out of the contingencies, the known money that we've got coming in, and let the ARPA committee do their job. I feel more comfortable doing that. If you're pushing to adopt a negative budget and plug it with money from somewhere, we know we have this zoning fee money coming in. I would feel more comfortable using that than I am steering the ARPA committee in a certain direction. That's just me personally. No, I'm not saying that there's not going to be money that's going to be allocated, but are we setting the stage to say, okay, well, we need you to adopt X, whatever X is, to the ARPA committee? Because we've already pulled out the 400,000, which would balance the budget. the exercise here is just to show the direction we're trending.
Well, of course, I'd like to, it goes back to that discussion of what does the county need to operate on and what percentage of revenue over expenses do we need to carry comfortably year over year? And I don't think when you look at, okay, when you add that, your point of what you showed, what are you showing? Well, and we really can't have that conversation until we get to capital. Yes, Wendy.
I just, I want to kind of respond to what Rick was saying. I couldn't agree more with Rick. I myself am in this position, very excited about doing some strategic planning to get some long-range plans in place. I'm really excited about doing that. I've talked to the chairman a number of times and he keeps telling me, we're already meeting enough with the budget. Can you hold off for a little while? So I'm trying to do that. But I would also add, Rick, back to your comment that while I agree we need some long-range planning and we need to, start that fund for these capital projects that we never seem to have money set aside to do, the roofs and whatever. But I also think we have to take advantage of whether it be zoning fees or this ARPA opportunity to take that short-term opportunity to help our long-term plans. And so I think it's something to be considered. Not my decision to make whether ARPA does this, but short-term adjustments and opportunities are going to help the long-term.
Yep. Bob first.
I like the creativity, like Rick said, and you guys can mention to the ARPA committee what you want, if you want to do that. You guys supersede them at the end of the day. But I want to talk about the budget in general. Since I was here, and I don't know when I was elected, appointed, we were putting out fires here. We started with $1 million. I mean, Arlen can attest that we were $1 million in the hole before we did anything. And that was with permit fees. And so then we transfer 600,000 or 650 to fill that hole. So we're not doing that anymore. And we got some revenue streams coming. It doesn't mean that we can celebrate we're out of the thing, but now we can look ahead. We were putting out fires before all the time. Now we can at least settle the dust and look forward now. So I don't think your budget's that bad. At the end of the day, you got some tough decisions. We need to make them and move on and see what we can do.
John, did you have something?
I'm sorry, I came in late and said some other things that do. Property,
Microphone.
right. Property's in the process right now of setting up a agenda to get some of the depreciated things, get the line items in for depreciation and taking care of some of the properties that will deteriorate over the next 5 to 10 years. So hopefully by the end of the year, you will see a detailed list of what is needed and when it's going to be needed and so on. Rooftop furnaces, buildings, things of that nature. And so Paula, takes a lot of time.
May I make a suggestion about this or a comment about this health department? I think that we can leave this budget the way that it is for budget purposes. We can do a budget adjustment later if we have another revenue source to replace this. So as far as the budget is concerned, it's a budget and it can be adjusted so long as our bottom line doesn't change. So you don't have to make that ARPA decision yet. You do have to make it in time for the tax levy, which in the past, I think has gone on the agenda in October and was approved in November.
Correct.
Depending on timing, you could, in theory, put it on in November and approve it in December, so long as we can get it downstairs by the third Tuesday or Thursday, I can't remember, third or fourth Tuesday, whatever the date is. But if the board meeting is early enough, you may be able to put it on in November and December and still get it approved in time for the statutory requirements, which would give the ARPA committee a little bit more time to make a decision.
Right. And we are envisioning at the ARPA committee, October 7th, as already been alluded to, the strategic planning session. So I think coming out of that meeting, we're going to have a pretty good idea about what the consensus is of board members on how they'd like to allocate that money. And that will lead into your next finance committee in October too, that might give you more information. So I agree with Paula. Leave it as is for right now. This is just a tool in the toolbox to be considered going forward.
And it can be changed later if we are able to do the ARPA replacement. That's an easy fix, really. For the budget, not for the levy. The levy is going to be set in stone, but the budget can be adjusted later. Levy,
But
you're
this-
not doing anything different.
But the levy of the health department, that's included in our overall levy. So
It is,
so-
right.
So that, the number doesn't.
Right,
So-
right. It
so
just,
we're
it
covered.
won't affect the budget, but you have to make that decision for the levy.
Right.
Which potentially, depending on timing, could go November and December, usually goes October, November, as far as approvals.
Arlen. Did you have? Yep. Go ahead.
The worst thing we can do is have money from that we can't spend and take it out of our budget. I mean, that's against any moral obligation. Anything we do now, reducing levies and whatever, in theory, if we do have a balanced budget, we're going to increase our capital or whatever, our funds will increase. And what we want to make sure is that we've got $6 million that we need to spend properly. But that's a lot of money and that could put us in a much better shape financially than where we are now.
I'm sure that they can spend it. It may not benefit the bottom line of Lee County, but it could go out. You can spend every dollar giving it away to the community. I don't think you're gonna have a problem spending it. It's just, but my opinion.
Okay, so to close the conversation in the health department, we're still going to maintain the $100,000 reduction.
We can, yes.
Okay.
Why only that?
That was just simply because, so Kathy, you came in late, Arlen. So the number, so Kathy's carryover is $718,981. And so we're going to reduce that by $100,000. And so if as we go through, and that's what we would do regardless outside of any ARPA discussion. So as we go through the ARPA discussion, then later on, we may do what we just talked about doing, is doing more and then making the adjustments in that department. Okay, is everybody clear on how we're going to proceed on that? Crystal? Perfect. Okay, so that's where we're at. So we are still at the 363 number.
Where are we at? What did you just ask me?
So we finished
Health.
Okay, let's see. Wait a minute.
I have one last thing to say about that before we move on.
Okay.
So Paul just made an excellent point and duh. So if
That's
we
why we
levy,
have him here.
yeah, that's why we have him here. If we levy everything not in the health department, if we eliminate the health departments this year or drop it down to a minimal amount, whatever that might be, and levy it in the general fund, it's still, I mean, if we don't get the ARPA money that we can offset, we can just transfer the money from the general fund because the general fund is unrestricted. We can transfer it over to the health department. They can get it either way. So it probably just makes sense to levy it in the general fund and not there this year because we can still give them the money. It's not like it's being levied in the health department and it can't go the other way, but it can go from the general to the health department. Thank you, Paul.
Okay. Thank you.
Pointing out that.
And
If
you,
we go that route, could I get something in writing?
you have the minutes of this meeting.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Becky, be sure and get that in the minutes.
And Wendy, well, yeah, Wendy can even highlight that area for you, Kathy.
Anyway,
So-
that's all. Okay, sorry.
Okay, so having said that, I guess I'll ask the committee their pleasure. Would you rather leave the levy reduction of the health department at the 100,000 or just go ahead and do that? And then, if the ARPA money doesn't come through, we transfer it later on. I really don't have a dog in this.
Yes.
It's had 6 doesn't happen. It's what you guys want to do.
With me.
I think it may be
Oh,
needed.
it's not.
Microphone.
Jump in there.
I think we may want to transfer more than 100,000, but we'll have another opportunity to do that. Because that's not very much on a, trying to, if R picks up $350,000. But we don't have to make that decision today.
Okay. Paul, but again, it's not 6 of one, a half dozen of the other. You got to think about it in fund terms. You can move from the county general money out to any fund, but you cannot bring back from the health to county general.
Okay, Paul is right. And that is a really good point. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. So I guess I would propose that so that it would be actually an elimination of the levy out of the health department. So we would be zeroing out that, so it'd be $556,000 that we would be moving out of the levy of the health department to county general.
Kathy, when we talked the other day, you had some concerns about taking it flat out to zero, statutory or otherwise. Do you recall, or do you have a comment on taking it to zero?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a question for Charlie, I guess, because statutorily, the county has to provide some level of funding to the health department. So I don't know if you want to take it to zero or just some small number. That, I guess that's a question for Charlie.
Yeah, I would recommend just taking it to a small number, whatever, pick a number, doesn't matter.
I thought earlier in this meeting, we talked 56,000, 50,000.
I said 50, but I was just throwing that out.
I knew I heard.
If that works, that works.
Okay.
Stay.
Okay, so we're removing $500,000 from the levy. Okay.
I think, Marilyn, are you looking to speak? Nope. Yep.
Yes, I was. If you take it to zero, there was a concern, if you can bring it back, and I know you can, and Jim would verify this also, with South Dixon Township, when he was supervisor, we had the general assistance levy at zero, and because we had money, and eventually we put it back in and levied for general assistance when I was supervisor. So you can put a levy back in even if it's been zeroed out.
As long as you do not go over your statutory levy limit.
Yeah, on the maximum, but I mean, eliminating one levy doesn't mean you can't put it back.
Yeah, because your overall levy really isn't changing. You're just moving it from one dedicated source to another.
Correct. I think what Kathy's referring to, though, is actually in the public health statutes, in that it says that the county board shall, so that's why I think we're leaning towards putting at least something in there, not down to zero.
Yeah, 500,000. Okay, I think the consensus of the committee now is to reduce the health department levy by $500,000, leave 56,000 and move that over to the county general.
Yes, and I will replace it with a grant line item of generic nature.
Okay.
Perfect.
So we can take the money back out of general fund and put it back into the health department, regardless of where the money comes from. We'll have the levy money.
Correct.
In the general fund.
Correct.
I just don't want to.
So
I don't want to earmark certain funds coming other than what we already know that we have coming in. So.
Yeah.
What I'm going to change in the general fund is I'm going to increase the levy amount, and I'm going to increase the transfer to the capital fund for the same amount.
Okay, the rest of these, I knew that we were going to have a lengthy discussion on that so that everybody was clear. The rest of these pages, I'm just going to go page by page and we're going to zip through them real fast. So page 16, is there anything that stands out to anybody that wants to pull out? I'm going to go through them. So, okay, page 17. Page 18. Page 19. Doug?
I just said we're speed reading here. You get it. I can read numbers pretty good.
Well, part of the reason we can go fairly quickly is because these are kind of static.
Okay.
Page 20.
I got a question to Paul here.
Yep. Go ahead.
Oh, what, I'm sorry.
Page 20. In my notes on the Veterans Treatment Court and the Violent Crime Victim Assistance Grant, we have a potential hit on our general fund September of October is what I've got down there. I don't know what that means anymore, but
Oh, mental health court and veterans treatment. Yes, that is true. I don't think they've actually done anything in those, as you can see, if you look over the past couple of years. There's actually been no veterans or mental health court or veterans treatment court expenses. So at this point, I don't think either, well, I haven't gone through all of my regs yet, but these could be part of the probation services, which is up at the top as opposed to the general fund. But that's really a question for Stacy. I mean, they budget stuff, but they haven't actually used either one of these funds in 3 years. No activity whatsoever. So I don't know if there's a big risk of them running out of money because I just don't think it may even just be a defunct process.
just a note that I had.
Page 21. Now, the note that I have here is on the circuit clerk or the court document storage is that the $25,000 fiscal year 22 budget is going on equipment and furniture from 25 to 45.
Yeah, 35.
You have 35?
I have
Paula, what-
35 in there plugged in. We took the 10 from the salary full time. Get that X'd out.
I missed that. Oh, I see. Okay. That's how you got that. That would, that's why it's 35. Yeah. Paula, do you have that?
What did I do? Make these corrections. Yeah, we had a full-time line item of, full-time salary line item of 10,000, which is gone. And we have document storage, wait, I'm in the wrong one. We're in court document storage, right? Is that which one we're talking about? Okay, so that 10,000 for the full-time salary is gone. We're not charging full-time salaries there anymore. Equipment and furniture is now at 45,000.
So we should have a carryout of 62.
72.
Other 10,000.
Well, I guess because we eliminated the full-time salary. So we increased something by 20, decreased something by 10. So there's a $10,000 increase in expenses from 93,000 bottom line to 103,000 negative bottom line.
Finance
So-
chairman that has problems with simple math. Now this is a
No,
problem.
you're fine. I'm just like, my formula's wrong, my formula.
If you need to leave the room, Paul, I'll excuse you, no
That's fine.
comment necessary. All right, 72 carry out. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, anything else on 21? 22. 23.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I guess I'm just following up to see if we've got any headway from an administration standpoint of the fees that we can collect on lots in general.
So Rick, I did meet with Greg and we reviewed the actual costs. And then he walked me through and even helpfully sent me the formula for figuring what is referred to as these indirect costs. So there is an opportunity to calculate indirect costs and reimburse the county the calculation amount based on indirect cost. Unfortunately, it's not as simple as saying the grant is $10 million and it's 10% of 10 million. Within the grant, there are certain items that qualify for this 10% reimbursement and there are certain items that do not. So how I followed up with Greg after my meeting that day was that he was going to kind of do a deeper dive into this and run these calculations and provide them back. Rick, I would love to tell you that I have them today, but I don't. I did put a tickler on my calendar to talk to him if I haven't heard from him by October 1st. I'm not sure where that leaves you as far as the committee is concerned, whether you want to make any changes here or whether you just want to do this going forward once we get that information. But again, I can tell you from having seen the formula, it was a rather complex process. I offered to do it initially until I saw the process and realized he's got all the data. I don't have the data of all the individual components of each of those grants that I can calculate this. So I've asked him to do that.
Yeah, and I guess I kind of, that's the understanding I had also, but I guess to follow up with that, my concern is that perhaps our actual costs are calculated a little too low. Sounds to me like we've got maintenance people, like I said, of driving out there clean, taking their personal vehicle. I don't know, it just to me, I think that I'm not saying we have to take advantage of the situation. I just think that we need to make sure that we're up to speed with what our true costs are for what the services we are providing out there. I would hope that we could find a little bit of extra room to help compensate the costs or the cost for the county to do business. In consequence, I guess I'm just asking the question, do we know who owns the property out there where the lots building is set? Is that ever, I mean, we just bought, or lots bought a lot in Oregon for the tune of 200 some thousand. Did we give them the lot out there, or we got an opportunity to charge rent for the property if we still own it? Or?
Mr. Chairman. So I asked Greg that question and I really don't know. He said that the state still has some kind of a restriction on it, on what we can do, because it was bought with the grant money from IDOT. And the property in Oregon was paid with IDOT grant money also. And he said it's not 100% the counties, as in the vehicles I thought were the counties. And he said, no, they're not either. He has to have IDOT sign off on them when we sell them too. So.
But we have to insure those vehicles.
Yes,
Yes, that's under our general liability insurance.
Yes, but now we're getting, he's compensating the county back or whatever. I think
That and the property itself, because we are insuring the buildings itself. And so, yes, we are getting reimbursed for that. Rick, as a follow-up to your comment, that's exactly the conversation that Greg and I had. I told him, I said, I want to know once and for all if I want to do this calculation and determine, are we being fairly compensated? So I know it's an onerous process. I can tell you that now that I've seen the formula, but I said, we need to go through the steps and we need to provide the finance committee and the board the comfort level that in fact, the way we're doing this with reimbursement of exact costs is going to be the most prudent option. He believes that it is. And I said, we just need to prove it. So let's go through the steps.
Well,
that's how I left it with him.
For example, with the insurance, I mean, I'm assuming he's paying whatever the premium is. Is there anything extra? Because
we asked the insurance company to give us those estimates. And so they've calculated that, and that's what's based in the budget right now.
But again, the time that's spent and administrating all this stuff and the staff that we have to do, I mean, again, I'm not saying it's got to be down to the penny, but it takes so much time and effort to keep all this stuff straight and to follow up on it. There's administration costs that go with anything that of this size. And as far as I'm concerned, if they're not going to compensate it for it, we need to cut the whole thing loose if we can and just get away from it, because it's, to me, it sounds like it's just a weight dragging us down.
I think that is the goal, is
to
separate that. There's timing issues, but yes, in the meantime, though, that's exactly what I told Greg. We need to have a confidence level that we are being fairly compensated for what we're doing for those grants. And so he has assured me he's going through the process.
As we construct this mass transit district, that's one of the things that's being discussed. We're having a meeting, I believe, going to be next month we're waiting on the attorneys to drop some of the forms and so on and so forth.
I would say we're within a year of the mass transit taking over.
Can't come soon enough.
I would agree.
So I guess for this discussion, is there any changes within his budget line items, understanding that we're having further conversations, and if we get more reimbursement from lots.
But the way I understand it, I don't know that we have the ability to change anything, do we? That's the part that I'm concerned with. I don't think we can.
I don't think we can, because it's all grants.
But that's what I'm saying. It needs to come from out there. And I don't know that we're getting the same type of effort there than what we're looking for here.
If we accept it the way it is for our budget purposes, and we let Wendy continue to pursue this, the best opportunity is we'll gain some funds out of it. And
Correct.
if
Yeah.
not, it stays the way it is in the budget.
It'd definitely be a positive. It'll not be a negative on the budget.
That's the point.
First, the administrative. So on.
Yes, the question is whether or not
Yeah,
grant
whether
will
it's
allow more.
what it really should be.
So the last thing before, and my plan is we got one more thing to my knowledge on this, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll tackle capital. And that would be the Lee County Social Services. So the way we had left that from the hearing was that we were going to fully fund everything as we did last year, and then encourage all of the entities to apply for further funding through the ARPA process. So anything had
Agreed.
changed from
And
that?
I will just say that the ARPA, the members of staff that are working on ARPA have every intention of reaching out to those social service agencies along with others. If coming out of our strategic planning session, this is a direction that the board wants to go. And then we'll develop that, that solicitation, so to speak, invitation to submit to all of those agencies. So we will directly follow up with them to the extent we can. It's just a matter of seeking the board's direction.
Okay, any questions on that? Let's take a 5-minute break. And so we'll come back at 10:05 and we'll come back and tackle capital. Well, 5-minute break is turning into 10. I'll call everybody back into session. Whistle, where's my gavel?
Farm girl, I can whistle with both fingers, I'm telling you. Works good at football games. What? Blaming me?
Yeah.
What'd I do?
Change the date.
I didn't do that.
Oh.
They did that, didn't they?
Yeah.
It wasn't 8 o'clock. meeting, correct?
Where did I do?
Wasn't this an originally an 8 o'clock meeting?
Originally 9.
I just do what I'm told to do. Trust me, I don't want to get up any earlier than I have to.
I got some by the end of the week.
Okay.
Capital shouldn't be too large.
Well, it is when I don't have my.
I have fun looking for now.
Hey, when you're walking by, it's not.
Paula, we got the new
That's all I do all
list.
day, is talk.
It vanished.
I have way too much paper.
Hey, Jim,
Yeah,
I got about a half hour. available.
right. I
Just so
understand.
you know, I'm.
I know, I'm aware.
Take care of his wife.
I got about 5 minutes.
And
Well,
what?
we can do this as fast or slow as you guys want to do.
Giddy up. We got something else on here.
There we go.
We got
Thank you.
another item on the agenda.
Yeah, we do. But that won't take but a second. That's just
You are
more of
one.
a note.
Oh,
Okay, call everybody back into session. So to wrap this up, we need to go through the capital plan. So we were showing originally about expenditures out of capital of 913,143. Okay, you didn't change this as much as I thought you were going to, but that's okay. We'll do it. Oh, I see that.
So
Well, is that right?
my question to you, Paula, is then we took 400 or 500,000 out of the general fund budget and put it into
No, 445,000. Wait,
the 400,000 or 500,000 we took out of fees.
yes.
We were gonna move that into capital.
Oh, yeah.
So my question is, the beginning balance here is 4.3 million. We end up at 3.5. Does
You're
that
right.
have the 500,000 in here? or not?
750,000 needs to go in here. That then, I don't have the revenues really in here.
This is the one we're gonna look at.
So it's gonna go to 7,375. Am I hearing right? For capital fund beginning balance?
No,
Well, no, the beginning balance is still gonna be the 4375,
Okay.
but there would be a transfer in addition to the expenses going out. So right now we have 750,000 coming over here. Well, that's not gonna be true. I need to add like another 500,000 to that or 400,000 to that. So we have the 4.375, adding to that 1.15. So then if I do my math at the bottom, we should have 4 million. That's not right. Okay, hang on.
Should be 5.525. For our new beginning balance.
Not 4,375.
Right.
I get 4.6
for beginning or end?
end,
You're going.
4.7 with the 827,000 that you've got right now on this list, which again is a list of requests.
Correct. I just want to get our starting and.
Yes, so your starting is 4.375.
Okay.
You can add in a transfer in or revenues or whatever you want to call it of 1.15.
Yep.
And right now, the bottom line of the expenses is 8,827,000, which leaves you with an ending balance of 4,697,277.
I wouldn't worry about that bottom line number until we work through the list, and then we will see where we
Right.
get that. So the difference, the main difference that we had from the previous page to the new page is we have a reduction of the new maintenance shop from $100,000 budget request down to 10,000. And that is just simply coming from that we know we're going to spend money across the street. I did have a conversation with Tom Wilson last night. And John, if you want to speak to it, but you guys aren't to the point where you really know, it's more planning right now. And so we're going to have that 10,000 in there in case you need to have engineering work. And I'm understanding that there's an engineering
report being compiled as we
right
speak.
now.
I'll have it for tomorrow night's board meeting.
So there you go.
Oh, some of it.
So that's what that difference is from the 100,000 down to the $10,000.
My answer.
Okay. So let's just run through each of these, and there's going to be a couple that's pretty simple.
Yeah, we are down to just the one
Yeah, we
additional
were just
squad
down to
car.
Yeah. So
And the other thing that was taken off this list from the 940 is the forklift and trailer.
Skid loader.
Oh, you did.
Skid loader.
You did take that off
That,
on.
yes.
Okay.
Because apparently you guys decided that earlier
that's
and I
right.
didn't catch on.
Gotcha.
Did Greg discuss that at all with you? Are we gonna try to get that ARPA funds?
So the last time, John, when Greg came in and he had that request and we talked about, what the department's usage of that was, and it wasn't going to be that many hours. And so the question of, is it really proper for the county to own that? Or is it simpler just to go up to Ace Hardware and rent one?
Yeah.
For the times that you need it.
Yep, that was discussion we had. Okay. I wasn't here and privy to what you
Right.
talked to him about.
Right.
Haven't seen Greg in a couple, 3 to 4 days.
Right. So that's what that is.
Okay, good.
Okay, let's just go from the beginning and so new courthouse boilers. My understanding is that is something that needs to be in the works, but yet is not a priority situation as yet. Is that understand, Mr. Chairman?
Well, I think it's a priority, but let's try to mold that into our HVAC system. We're redoing everything through the ARP and ARPA fund, and see if we can pay that out of there. Do that whole project at once when we bid it. Seems to me to be the way to do that, if we can make that work.
Greg has got estimates on that. That's part of that huge $3 million request we made. That's been priced out. I believe he's got estimates to do it.
But as far as for the capital this year, that can be deferred. Okay.
But get it on ARPA, try to get it on ARPA.
Okay, old courthouse electrical upgrade. $16,000. Wendy, do you have anything on that?
Not specific, except for the fact that I've worked in the building for 35 years, and let's suffice it to say, we need some additional electrical outlets and some infrastructure so that we quit blowing fuses around here.
What that involves, Jim, is with the generator for this courthouse. This courthouse, things went out, electricity went out, we would go out here. So down the line, you have a generator upgrade. However, in the price of getting a generator upgrade, it was found that the circuitry in this building some probably goes back to the original. And so we do keep blowing fuses, as Wendy said. So we're going to have to do some electrical upgrades, and that's at 16 grand. And that's been estimated out. Greg showed the guys.
Okay, so 16,000 for electrical upgrade stays in.
All right. Well, going along with that is old court generator. So, and then,
This panic alarm system. Wasn't that,
oh, I'm sorry. I did miss that. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Rick.
I guess I don't know what that is. Is that the same system we've been talking about for the last 6 months?
Yeah, that's the key card system that would allow access to the old courthouse, similar to what they do in the new courthouse. So employees would carry a key card that would then track, it would allow them access into the building and into individual rooms within the building, and it would track who's coming and going.
So, I mean, how? Guess the question is if the employees need a card to get into the building, how about the public? How do they get in?
Well, this would be obviously for use in off hours when the building isn't open to the public.
I also think like the individual offices, if anything, we need to do the election department because that needs to be, we need to have a log who enters and exits, especially during the election period. I don't know about the rest of it, but maybe this is something ARPA can probably look at too. Because everybody has their own key card. They have their own key, I understand now too, but be less touching, the same thing, and as way we go. So I don't know if it's something we could tie into that or not. So.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. Did we not earlier also talk with the sheriff about actually an alarm system? Like the treasurer's office, if somebody came in.
This would all be part of that,
Okay.
that same system. So you're right. Good memory.
Yeah. Oh, not at all. I didn't.
But yes, that would be all be part of this.
Basically trying to bring it all up to the same quality as the other courthouse. So we can track who's coming and going and where they're going to. And alarm systems. I mean, this building is open to the public where the other ones is, but not, just a walk-in basis.
Okay, so 27,000 for the panic alarm system stays in.
Well, and I guess, John, you just touched on that. I mean, that's, and I don't mean to slow us down.
No,
here, but
that's all right.
My concern is that we
Man
implement
just
this.
told me the beans aren't ready to cut yet, so.
We implement this stuff. And the next step is, well, now we got to have a bailiff downstairs to monitor who's coming in. So I mean, it starts small and it ends up growing. And that's my concern here. I don't want to see that next year, 2 years, well, now we got to have a bailiff downstairs to monitor the general public coming in and out. That's all. I mean, just a comment.
I don't believe that's in the works right now, but I can't say I don't disagree with either. But I mean, things have a way of going.
Yes.
I can't speak to that because it's not, I know it's not. You're right.
Mr. Valley.
Chairman. Yeah, and the key cards in the alarm system, this would actually offset some of that for a while. There's no saying that if somebody might be needed in the future, but the alarm system upgrade, the key cards, it's been a big thing that's gone in almost every business or every large area. So the key cards lets you lock things, lets people get in, the right people get in, keeps keeps the record of when and what they went in. So it helps eliminate some of that at this time. And it's something that they really need going future is the key card and the alarm system.
Further cover Dave's comments, Paul Gorski, much of his work is done either prior to or after business hours. That would allow him access into areas that he now has to have a key for, has to beg the department to get access to, and it would help a lot with him and his employees.
So the 27,000 stays in. Okay. Generator upgrades and.
Is this a potential moving a small generator from here, from there?
No. That surprises, that works the old one.
Pardon me?
That is for the courts room and or the old jail until we decide to do what we decide to do with the old jail. And I don't believe the one that supplied the jail is big enough for this building.
Mr. Chairman,
So I talked to a guy yesterday about writing a grant for us. There's a grant available. I would still leave this in the budget. I think we need to address it, but the one over at the new courts building is not big enough to run our new EOC partition. So I mean, you would think that's what we'd want first to be able to run on a generator. I don't know the size of that one over there, but maybe we could move that here for the old courthouse and buy a new one that's big enough for everything over there. And I think that would be the direction, but I want somebody to study it first and look at our options before we go ahead. If we don't get the grant, I think you need to have it in here because I think that's something we need to move on.
So you want to keep the 110,000 in?
I think I would keep it in, or like we talked earlier, either put a dollar amount at the end so we got some movement of what we can do or whatever, but I think that's a project we need to move forward with. So.
You know how many kilowatts was over at the?
I tried getting somebody sent me a picture of the plate yesterday.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Greg told me, but it slips my mind. I've got it written somewhere down there, 160 kW or something.
Oh, I don't think it's that big. I don't think.
How many?
160 kW.
I put a 60 kW in and it ran about 25,000. I don't know if we got estimates on these, if they're legitimate or not, or what. But
Okay, so we're going to keep the 110,000. So do we know, you think that's going to happen this year?
Well, if it doesn't, I would try to and see or whatever. I'd have it in here and we'll,
Okay,
we'll
all right.
start next year's budget, not this year, but next year. What budget we're working on should happen in that period.
yeah, we're on the same page.
Okay, just so, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Okay. So 110,000 stays in. County clerk, 6 chairs. So Wendy,
We just had a question about that. And I haven't had a chance to follow up with Nancy, but our question was, does Nancy have an opportunity from some of her other funds to maybe purchase the 6 chairs? Or the idea might be that we create a more generic line item for furniture and equipment. And Bob pointed out that periodically something comes up that we don't really have a budget for because it was unexpected. So you could create a furniture line item generic and then just reserve some money for if Nancy, for example, doesn't have another opportunity for funding for that, or if there's another request.
yeah, see, I like that a lot better rather than because then every department is going to be, so what were you thinking? So put like a 10,000 line item.
That's what I would do.
County
And
furniture.
right, and not necessarily earmark it at this point in time, but rather just reserve it for something that may come up. And in the meantime, I will chat with Nancy about that and just find out if there is another opportunity out of some of her funds to purchase those chairs. I'll talk to her.
We've got 100,000 in contingency. I don't know. I mean, we're talking $1,500 right now. So if we can't find $1,500, we're pretty.
Well, the point is that even proper being in here?
Well, that's what your contingency does.
Okay, because why, everybody has their own furniture and equipment budget in their budget, separate budgets. Why is this even?
Well, that was the question that came up, Doug, is we think, keeping in mind that Nancy's relatively new to her position, so she just may not have understood that that's how you go about this. When Paula put out the budget to all of us and requested our items coming back, she said, and if you have any capital items, let me know. And so Nancy did. We think it's just a matter of clarifying with Nancy is all.
So as far as what we're going to do here, we're going to eliminate that line and she can, look within her own funds to pay for that for the time being. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I would still like a $5,000 or $10,000 because stuff comes up. The desks in here, or last year we had Judge Acker called me and they had 2 tables to refinish. She said I can refinish them for $250. It's not in my budget. I don't have a budget to pay it out of, or I can buy 2 new tables for $6,000 a piece. What do you want to do? And I said, refinish them. So we refinished them and then we ended up doing 6 tables instead of the 2. And we really didn't have anywhere to do it. So we found room in the county, my budget, and we paid them out of there. It'd just be a lot cleaner if we had, I'm not talking about a lot of money, but there's stuff that comes up that really don't have a place to go sometimes.
May I suggest that we put this 10,000 in here and then I'm going to reduce that 100,000 contingency down below to 90.
There you go.
Good idea.
Okay.
Now we're
I'm
cooking.
fine with that.
Now we're cooking.
Okay, so that's actually a net minus.
Oh, we're busting the bank now.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna remove that line item, have it as a general county furniture of $10,000. And a reduction in contingency of down to 90. Okay,
Right, so far we have for sure, we've gotten through, we're leaving 10,000. Maintenance shop, 16,000 for electrical upgrade, 27 for panic alarm, generator upgrades is 110, and now I have furniture at 10. And we're moving on down the list from there, correct?
I'm down to expenditures out of capital of 749,450.
Yes.
Thank God for calculators. Okay, EMA, we've got two that I've got marked here of potential coming out of ARPA. The Salamander for 13,000 and Code Red for 20,000. I think we can safely move those over to ARPA. Anybody have any objection?
Well, and again, you got that contingency down below. So if we find ARPA isn't available and we want to revisit that, you'll have that opportunity.
Correct. Any objection? Okay. Okay, board copier printer, $5,350. Becky, you want to comment on that?
I would, because the one I have now came from the coroner's office, and the maintenance agreement that we have was, I mean, it doesn't do very many of the colored copies, and it doesn't do very many of the black and white. So the charge that we're gonna get using that is gonna be way higher than it was originally intended. So what I do is I print my board packets out on the zoning copy machine, which twice now has kind of died on us when I was attempting that. So two reasons. One is we just need a bigger printer, especially now with Wendy as the administrator. And secondly, we could use a backup copier in case theirs does go down permanently, and then we have a backup. So it's just not built for the amount of copies that have to go through it. So, but I do know that the copier that we do have, there were some requests from the judges in different offices, and I know Paul was looking for copiers like that. So it could be reused within the county somewhere that doesn't use the amount of copies that we have, so it could be reused, but it's just not gonna do the job that we're requiring of it. So.
Keep it in.
Is there a maintenance agreement that goes with this?
Both of them, yep. So it's the cost, and I'll look back in my emails and find it. So it's the cost of the copier, which you have, and then I'll look back. I want to say it's 127, but I'll find that.
But that maintenance agreement's in my budget, so.
Yeah, I know. It's just, they come in, they blow them out. and they
Yeah,
charge
we got it in there,
$127.
I think it's $120, I thought, for.
I thought it was 120. Did I say 127?
Whatever.
Jim Pearsall can't bear.
Well, anyway, I've been kind of informed that if we don't allocate, keep this copier in, that you're gonna take it out of the various board members' hides. And
Drop stuff on you as you walk out of the building.
we're gonna
Line the halls. You guys are gonna walk through the whole gauntlet.
Okay, we'll keep it in. Next 5 items. Yep, sorry.
First of all, did you have something?
Yeah, I was asking questions I couldn't answer. I knew Greg was busy working on a boiler and I didn't really want to bother him.
Yep.
But we talked about taking the old generator that's in the new courts building, putting it over here to save us some money. First of all, that's only a 50 kW over there in that building. It won't carry that building, won't carry the EOC. So we're gonna have to do something over there. But what we plotted out here was not 160, as I stated, but 150 kW. And I don't know if there's anything more that
Well, and I don't think it's feasible for you to move the old generator from for the new courthouse because the age of it. It's getting to the point where our generator guys, having to put parts on it every time they service it. He had to put a new circuit board on it actually it was this year. And he's saying, hey, this thing's, reaching its life expectancy. So it'd be not feasible, I don't think, to move that generator.
How old
from
is
here to
that
there.
generator, Greg?
Pardon?
How old is that generator? Do you know?
That is original to the building when it was built over there, so it's close to 20 years old.
How many hours is it diesel?
No, it's natural gas. Rick keeps track of the hours. I don't have that. He writes it down because we keep track of it, so we make sure it does do its run cycle, every so many days. So Rick has a chart on that.
So when you design these things, of course, you design them so that they match the capacity demand for the building.
Right.
And what if,
That one was designed before they put the new addition on. So they maxed it out for what they have right now. And then, of course, it wasn't figuring EMA up there, needing all that generated extra power also. So from what I understand, they said it was maxed out as they couldn't do any more with that generator.
I was just running over here, basically what we'd be looking at is making sure that we have backups, for, powering the computers, lights, maybe not necessarily, having that hooked into the AC and HVAC system or whatnot, just so that, we had basically people could keep working for a short period of time. If you took that
whole building for that.
What's that?
The 150 kW would do the whole building. I can give you the breakdown on the 50,000 or 50 kW, but by the time you still got to have the same amp changeover switch and every transfer switch. Right. When you start, it's easier to do the wiring and do the whole building. As this building, if you're starting to split off circuits, it's a total nightmare because everything's got to be run exposed. So you're gonna redo all the conduits. You've already got the power there, and that's why infrastructure the new breaker panels, because those won't carry a fluctuating load because they're so old. So I have that figured for this year for Engel to do that, or for next year to redo all the wiring, update it. Of course, he's not going to get all of it done because we don't know, with all the room changes we're doing here currently, we don't know who's going to need generator power and where, and extra power. So we're just doing the basic stuff to get it rewired, get the old Bulldog breaker panels out of there. They're obsolete. You can't even get the breakers for them anymore. And try to split off a lot of circuits and get things split up so that everything's not plugged into one outlet and got 15 of the multi-strips on it,
Well, and that's why we kept the 110,000 for the generator upgrade.
That's a good call. I mean,
Okay.
it'll be a natural gas system. It'll be planned on sitting it right by the corner where the garbage dumpster is there. It'd be off the concrete there. We pour a new pad, so it's not sitting on that original concrete pad that's there, because it'll just echo like you wouldn't believe, being hollow underneath. So we plan on pouring a new pad there, having the gas run to it. It's a short run, so it'll be fairly inexpensive to get the gas supply to it. And now electrical also goes in that area too, down to the main supply. So, I mean, everything, that's the perfect spot for it.
The answers you need.
Yeah, I think that's good. Yep.
I didn't know them all.
But if you need the numbers on how many hours and stuff, I can get that stuff for you off the one over there, but.
Sure. Well, it's probably still a saleable item, so,
But it's better if you understand what's going on. I get my resident expert here.
Right.
Clarify things for you.
Appreciate that, Greg. Okay, so the next five, yeah.
Jim,
go
real
ahead.
quick, Arlen had, and I was questioning the same, what the heck is code red? Huh?
That's supposed to be an alarm or a communication system when there is an alarm that, and I don't know any more details than that otherwise, other than it would communicate any sort of emergency type of situation.
It's a software that would go on like your phone, where
a weather alert, a child abduction, it works in the same realm as that. It's a notification that gets pushed out to whoever subscribes to it. So.
Just curious.
Yeah, so that's what they're thinking is, hey, we'll have something for the county. In other words, we'll have a piece of software that they can
So
use.
is there an annual fee that's gonna be attributed to this now?
I don't know. I asked Doug, I asked the same question when Kevin had brought this up. I said, well, what is it? What does it do?
Sorry.
That's what it does.
That's what it does.
There it
And
is.
so I'm not sure if there's an annual subscription to that. There probably is for software, because anytime you buy software, you basically pay them an annual maintenance agreement or something to that. But again, it was for a county purpose.
So anyway.
You could you can argue it if you need it or not.
So if Kevin wants to have that run through ARPA, we'll revisit that at that point in time. So it's off of our capital list.
Yep.
So we've got the next 5 things of IT. So we've
And
got.
if I could interrupt you for just a second, Jim, I'm sorry. I wanted to respond back to, I did hear from Paul Gorski on the $50,000 in his regular budget. And his response was that 50,000 will include services for remote backup, network and telephone support services, and professional configuration services for the network. None of which I can do without if I'm going to upgrade our servers, networks, and backups. And that all kind of leads into these next 5 items that's on his capital plan. These items are, I believe, a critical need in terms of being able to take care of the cybersecurity issues that we've got in part, and also backups. We need some backups, and I know you've been hearing this in years past, but we've never accomplished that. So he's ready to do that, but he needs the funding for it.
So to understand you, Wendy, we're looking at buying a file server upgrade and backup for 90,000, and you're telling me that 50,000 is in addition to buying the equipment?
The 50,000 is essentially the services, professional services to configure the network and or to set up telephone support services and backup services. So that's actually paying a professional to help with some of that.
Shouldn't that be in the capital line item then?
I have no problem with that. I don't think Paul does either. Again, this is his first budget cycle to go through. But professional services may be something that he is thinking about on an annual basis. I don't know if it'd be 50,000, but it'd be something that he wants to tap into. When I talked to him individually about his budget a few months ago, I asked him point blank, do you have enough staff to do what needs to be done? Because everything seems to funnel to IT. We all have IT demands. And he said that he felt he did have enough staff, that his idea for some of those infrequently done items would be to hire professional services to help with it. So the network configuration, you don't do daily, you don't even do it monthly necessarily, but you do need it at certain times. And his way of managing the items that needed to be done was to use a combination of professional services and on staff.
He's already having the 50,000 in his budget now.
In his regular budget, you talked about it earlier, yeah, and the question was, what did that cover?
Well, I guess from what I'm hearing, it sounds to me like it needs to be moved to capital as part of the one-time setup fee for this new equipment, and then that reduces our annual operating budget by 50,000 or whatever that number needs to be reduced to.
Just to clarify what I said, because Rick, I think I was misleading. I believe based on his conversation with me about his budget is that he expects these to be ongoing service fees. That's why he plugged it into his budget versus capital. It's not purchasing a piece of equipment, rather it's a service that he expects to be ongoing rather than hiring an additional staff member annually.
He has a lot of budget items such as phone systems backup and all things like that. Is that including the stuff that's already in there? Or, I mean, he would have professional services much more than 50,000. Could we gone over that? No, we don't know.
I don't think so, Arlen. I think I'm looking at the rest of his line items and all he has is the $50,000. And by the way, that's up considerably from prior years. The fiscal year 21 budget was $5,000. But again, remember Paul's new. So this is a reflection of his philosophy as to how to manage all the IT demands. And part of that is to outsource those items, those services that you're only going to need to do infrequently, rather than hire a network configurator and pay a high salary to that person. Let's just hire a professional in the infrequent times we need it. And I think that was his philosophy as I understood it.
I look at this as one of those other things that, prior years, we've always been reactive to problems, and this is more proactive and solving our problems ahead of time. So
All of these and his 50,000 is necessary.
there you go.
It just is.
I
If
second
we're gonna
that.
function, you're gonna spend it, period.
Okay, so all of the IT items are in. Maintenance, carpet replacement. Greg, you have any comment on that?
We usually put in, I can't remember.
Into the
what we
mic,
did.
please.
We usually put in an amount every year for that.
So this is
During
just part of
COVID last
normal
year.
rotation.
Right. And during last year, I know we probably didn't use all the amount because of the COVID and trying to keep people out of the areas that, we don't want to get infected.
Right. Okay. Carpet stays in. You want to speak to the next two items, Greg, since you're here, and thank you for taking some time here. I don't want to hold you up too much, but we'll take care of these next two, and then you can be on your way, get back to. So the maintenance truck, as I remember the budget discussion, there was a little bit, the concern, we've got an employee that's using their personal vehicle, running out to lots in the LEC. So if you want to speak to that anymore, and then we have lawnmower cab on the $9,000 for lawnmower cab. So go ahead.
Yeah, the truck, we did get rid of a couple of vehicles last year. The one, in fact, where the old van, we're gonna take Stacy Stewart. It's actually her van. It was handed down to the maintenance to use, and now we used up the life expectancy of that. So it's gonna be donated, I guess, to the rural fire department in Dixon. So we have a person in one of our janitorial staff that's driving her own personal vehicle out to the jail and lots to do the cleaning out there. And we always had a vehicle for somebody there before, and if we get another new vehicle, we'll be able to let her use the oldest vehicle, which used to be the old animal control truck. So we'll put her in that because it's starting to show its age too. It's got like 175,000 miles on it, but she's just going to be using it driving out to the animal control and back every day. So it would make it easier for her to haul paper towels, toilet paper, all of our cleaning stuff in the back of that instead of in her personal vehicle. Then we would get the new truck for probably one of our maintenance guys with the plow on it. So he'll have a newer truck to plow with. The other older truck will be shifted down, and
This truck will be outfitted with a plow and.
Yes.
Okay, any objections? Okay,
The cab further, we bought a new tractor last year. We did use it in some spots mowing, and in some spots also. We was intended on taking the cab off the old blower that we have, or the old tractor we have now, but we've been using it, trying to, do some of the stuff with it, and we're just using it, the new one, for a backup at this point. But if we get the cab and the salt spreader, we're gonna be using that more often because that tractor's starting to show its life. But if we can still use it and leave the cab on it and leave the blower, two guys can blow instead of one. It makes it a lot easier, especially over here. We're hand pushing a salt spreader all over all these sidewalks, and it's ridiculous, even all the way down at the New Courts building from 3rd Street all the way down to the next street. That's a lot of pushing the sidewalks. And So if we can get a salt spreader on the back of the new tractor and the cab, one guy can be snow blowing part of that and salt, and the other guy can be over here with the older one doing some of the other areas, and then we can bring that salt spreader over and salt, after he's done.
Okay. Any objection? Yes, Bob.
Hey, Jim, I gotta go. I guess the beans are fit down south, so I'm gonna go, but I got one question. I can't wait to the end. So the contingency, we end up with 90 or $100,000 contingency, line item, so to speak. How do you foresee that working? So, so if I'm a department head and I need, a new, car, how do you see that moving forward?
Well, that's an interesting question because that contingency line item appeared from one page to the next, and I hadn't thought that through all the way as yet, but.
So if you leave that in there, you need a approval process is where I'm going with that.
Yeah, I would say that any department head that wanted to tap into the contingencies would have to come before the finance committee for final approval for that. They just couldn't do that, call Paul up and say, I need whatever.
So that's what scares me about that. So you want to be very careful with that, and because I know where it's going. So I don't know if that's prudent to do that at the end of the day, but it's totally your guys' decision.
So say that again.
I don't know if that's a wise move to end up with a $90,000 contingency.
Well, I'll tell you what, it may disappear before by the time we get done.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask that question before I go. So,
all right,
thank you.
Go cut beans.
Yep.
Do mine.
Okay, the next thing is, okay, so, there was one thing. Okay, so on the old page I had, the next thing was the Motorola Flex for 911 of
And that's been-
45,520.
And that's been moved to the general fund budget because it's an ongoing expense.
Okay. And that's going,
It went into the 911 department in the general fund as a software expense.
okay. So that software licensing.
Yeah. Is
so
now
that got
45,
moved. Okay,
Right.
45.
520, yes.
Paula, how do
Yes.
we decide what comes out of their 911 money themselves and what comes out of general fund?
The only thing that the general fund pays for is their salaries. And I think 911 pays for everything else other than the software agreement, which apparently the county agreed to last year sometime.
So there's really no protocol.
No, I mean, no, not that I know of.
Okay, Sheriff's Department, 2 rifles, 10,400. I guess my kind of feeling on that is that's something that, we're doing a lot in the Sheriff's Department in regards we're giving the 2 corrections, the extra patrol, the flex patrol person, and also dispatch. This is something that I'd actually like to see deferred. Yep.
I'm a pretty avid shooter and like to mess around with guns. And I was just kind of curious what a $5,200 gun looked like.
Well, it's the way it's outfitted. It's outfitted with, I asked the sheriff,
Yeah.
and it's well outfitted.
I don't doubt
It's
that.
not, it's
It
not
has
your,
to be.
it's not
You know,
your squirrel gun.
I know optics cost a lot of money. I understand, but I just want to see it if he gets it.
Yeah, I think it's just one of the things that we have to prioritize as
Yeah.
a finance
I
committee.
agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree.
Any objection? Okay. Okay, squads, of course, as everyone knows, that's a figure that used to be in the sheriff's budget. And we've moved that out and now put that in the capital, and that's just his normal rotation.
That's to my knowledge. Isn't it a 3-year
It
rotation?
seems like that's what I've understood.
That's my understanding.
Purchase or still lease?
No, they
We're
are
purchasing
purchased.
now.
This is the cost for us trading and keeping that on a 3-year schedule.
So this is our net.
Yes. Go ahead.
Next line item.
Oh, okay, yeah.
With the next line item, that number is going to increase if we approve the purchase of additional vehicle. I mean, that might only be another 5,000 a year or whatever, but again, this goes back to our actions continue to make our commitments continue to grow. How many miles are we putting on these squads? And I know it's a hard life, but
I don't know. I'll look, without getting in the weeds too much, kind of the direction I was thinking to go. I mean, you were here for the conversation that we had with the sheriff in regards to being a little more creative in having squads. I guess my thought is in having the extra patrol person, why not take one vehicle and go an extra year or a couple extra years and not put them in the schedule with an extra flex person. That car is going to be sitting, so to speak, and unless there's a general call that's necessary.
I mean,
I guess I'm looking at
the vehicle I drive, my personal, it's 6 years old, and I mean, it still gets me up and down the road, and I have had to put some money into it. I get that. I just concerned that this ongoing turnover and it costs us because the depreciation, as soon as you swallow it up.
Well, I
right
guess
away.
my thought is that $53,000 needs to come out of capital. The sheriff has 133,000 in his rotation, and that was where I was going in his general budget, where he had maintenance of a vehicle, and you commented, does that need to be if we're gotten constantly warranted vehicles, are we going to have that much maintenance? Maybe this is a way we leave that number alone, but we reduce and the sheriff's going to have to live with $133,000 in capital, and maybe he'll have to pull a car out of the rotation, and he may have some additional maintenance expenses there. But
I didn't know if we were under any commitment for a lease payment or
no,
or what.
no, because they're all owned vehicles. So that's kind of my thinking. Any objection from the committee? Okay, so the 53,000 comes out. Yes. Okay, treasures, software modules, $20,000. Paula?
So this kind of got put on the radar because of the new AP process and some requests for department heads to be able to access into the accounting system and get immediate information as to what their spending has been, drill down to invoices and that sort of thing. So buying 3 modules, one is also a budget module, was going to be about 20,000. So it's kind of to put it on your radar. There was talk about the lookup online to be purchased by lots. I think there was a request there that they wanted the information faster than at the end of the month when we send things out. So.
You said lots had that? I vaguely remember having that discussion, but.
Yeah, so that's my understanding, is that they were having some concerns about, waiting till the end of the month to get their information. So
maybe they should buy it.
As a matter of fact, I've talked to Greg about that.
Yes.
So
I was ready to call for
the module that we're referring to that would allow Greg to do what he's looking to do is about 7,000 of the 20. And I did suggest that to Greg, and Greg is certainly wants to pursue this. He would like a demo of it, and that came about just this week. So Paul and I have talked about how we can demonstrate to him what that would look like, but that is a very real possibility. So as Paula said, for right now,
Defer to next fiscal year, or is this something you still want to have on this year's capital?
Well, we can for sure drop it to 15,000.
All right, well, let's do that.
And maybe drop another 7 out of it. The AP software. It depends. I mean, it depends on if,
What do you think we're safe? If we drop it down to 15 and
Yes.
then we got ourselves covered there.
yes.
This is back to my point. So we've determined that the software portion of lots is $7,000, but that's just the software. Does it magically run in there? Do you have to have a computer that it goes into, somebody to operate the buttons? This is just all part of a.
Well, and of course, I'm thinking
Yes.
if, is it lots is the only department that would really use
No,
this,
I
or-
mean, it could be
Oh,
used by
okay.
anybody,
Okay.
but you do have to have some computer literacy for people to use this piece of the software, and you need computer literacy for them to use the AP piece of the software, which we are looking to potentially implement because of the new AP process and the new approval process that Chris Norberg is driving. So while all of this is good and great, you do have to know how to run a computer to be able to use any of this as a layperson and a department head or whoever in a department to be able to look at any of this stuff. So we do have some computer literacy issues that we're going to need to overcome to utilize either one of these pieces.
so just to add, and I don't want to drag out your meeting here, but just to add clarity, what Paula referred to, Chris Norberg has asked me to, simplify, minimize perhaps is the right word he's looking for, the claims process that you guys don't necessarily go through, but all the other committees, if you're serving in those other committees, do. So we're looking at automating a lot of that and changing the process. This is a module that would be necessary to do that, or at least included in this is a module that would be necessary to do that. We have a lot to flush out about that. I've been telling everybody that I have yet to be able to meet with Paula and Nancy to make sure that we have the staff that to do it and the software to do it. And eventually we'll be coming back with a recommendation. So right now, this is just kind of a put it on your radar kind of a thing. We need a lot of flushing out before we come forward and say, yeah, we're ready to spend this.
All right, so again, no problem with cutting that back to 15,000.
No.
Then
The next and final item, Jim, I could take from you. It's the
Final.
same exact thing. The chairman has asked me, he's been talking about it for some time, the idea of, again, automating the board process. He would really love board members to come to the table with a tablet or a laptop that would eliminate all of the packets of information and copies that we're making. It would be a software program that would provide organizational structure. And if you all had the software and a laptop to operate it, sitting at your board desk on board meeting night, you would have access not only to the existing agenda and all of the relevant documents, but you would have access to prior agendas, board rules, and any other relevant documents via this device, whatever it be, tablet or laptop. Once again, though, we are very, very early in this process. I asked Paula to add this to the list only from a perspective of I wanted to put it on your radar. We are nowhere near being able to pull the trigger and say, yeah, let's do this. We've got a lot to do before we get there, but I wanted it on your radar. Jim, to your question about, your next question was going to be, well, should we leave it on here or should we not? I will leave that to your discretion. The chairman really wanted to be able to move forward and do something by, let's say, December 1, the start of a new fiscal year. So it's possible we'll be looking at revenue left over out of this current fiscal year budget for that. More to follow, essentially. So I'll leave it to your or the committee's discretion as to whether you want to include it in here and let me just come back. Mostly, I wanted the opportunity to talk to you about it and let you know that it's something that's out there.
A problem is historically, if you get it in budget and capital, it's been said before, well, we had it budgeted. And so you think it's approval to spend. And we're saying a lot.
I understand.
Differently now.
Yep, I understand.
So how do we deal with that problem?
Well, I think the last two things we can kind of combine, you know, and especially with the comment that the chairman had before he folded. How about if we deferred the 50,000 and you know, I agree that 90,000 is something that I don't want that much money out there.
Can we have approval process for certain line items so it can't be spent without more discussion? Because that's what you're
You
saying.
can't. Wow.
That's complicated. I know we've spent money in the past because it's been in the capital budget.
Oh, your mic's dead, Paula. Oh, they're timing out. Oh, the meeting's timing out. We're supposed to be going. There. Paula's back.
From.
There,
So-
there, Wendy's back. Okay. Paula, were you gonna say something?
No, I was just gonna say something about the approval process, which doesn't really cover individual items within the capital budget. So that, I don't have anything to say. Never mind. Scratch all of it. No.
John.
To back up what Wendy's talking about is the upgrade in the technology in this courtroom. There's already been quite a bit of things done with Paul to get estimates on what it would take to upgrade this so we could vote electronically, have a much better screen to throw things up on, and everybody would have a laptop. I'm old school. I'm not really a techie by any nature, but I think it's something we need to do. Virtually everybody else does. Ogle County, when they designed their courtroom, they did it with technological things in place. And we just need to do this. This is.
And I would also add that this is also because the tablets or laptops, whatever, that would allow board members to go remote, should we ever need to again, thanks to COVID, that there is a possibility this could be a mitigation of COVID, and therefore under the ARPA grant. We haven't ruled anything out. We're too early. Again, the chairman's really pushing me to investigate this, and I wanted to just get it on your radar. So,
You know, why don't we do this? Because I don't think, what I'm hearing, we don't have a plan. We don't have.
Don't have a plan
any,
yet.
You know.
I'm working on it.
So understand. So my suggestion would be is that we leave that line item in. Let's reduce that 50,000 down to 20,000. And then when it comes back, we know it's there. We know.
We'll reconsider.
Because I can tell you right now, Paul's going to come and I think John can back me up on this. This room's not going to get redone for $50,000. It's going to be a six-figure bill. You know,
You're correct.
that's just what the reality is. So as that comes through the process, we're going to have to deal with that, and we'll have to see if, you know.
ARPA on the 7th, when we have our meeting with ARPA, that will be one of the things that's proposed is the audio visual in this room and in that meeting room. So hopefully we can continue to meet in that room for committees and so on. But that is, like Wendy said, we don't have a firm plan yet, but that's partly because we don't have a firm dollar amount either.
Okay, so are we in agreement to reduce that from 50,000 down to 20? Yes. Okay. Now, the last item is $90,000 on contingencies. I absolutely agree with the chairman as he left. We have other money that we can use for contingencies. I see no reason You have that there. If there's something that comes before it, it'll have to come through the process, through the committee, the finance, and we'll deal with it as it comes through.
I just want some clarification though from Paula, because if we adopt a budget and it's whatever the number ends up being, we're held to that budget is what she's saying.
Mhm.
So in a situation like this, where someone has an actual emergency and needs money to buy something or whatever, are we bound then without, can we go to the well, I guess? And how do we cover that?
What happens is you're gonna overspend your budget, which you're really not supposed to do.
That's why contingencies are in there for those emergency situations. So I agree with you on one hand. On the other hand, what I was hearing earlier, I was concerned about taking it out, not having any extra funds available without causing an issue. Because it's in there doesn't mean we have to spend it.
I understand. I just want to make sure that it's understood.
Well, that's up to us here
put-
as a committee, because we would be the
That's
ones that
right.
have to approve it.
So it
correct?
has to be, if somebody wants that contingency dollars, they're gonna have to come before this committee. And make their case.
Right, and that's the way it should be. In the past, though, unfortunately, we haven't done a very good, I don't believe in my mind, of forecasting the future, and so we push through what we know that we need and then come back and beg for forgiveness at a later date. And to me, I think that needs to stop.
Well, I think we can reduce the 90,000 down to a lower number. I would be comfortable, if we're gonna have any dollars there at all, I'd be comfortable with $50,000.
To me, it doesn't matter at that point in time. I think it's more of the discipline of saying no if it's not necessary. And I'm concerned that $50,000 really isn't a lot of money when you look at a budget of 3.5 million or whatever this ends up being. So,
Well, and we're gonna get okay, if you let me have my $50,000. Because then we're gonna be, okay, 30. Okay. Hopefully Paula has been keeping track as well. I'm at total expenditures, what we have right now on capital of 532, 530 is where I'm at.
532,000.
And so the, what? So I was
45 Oh, the 45, 520 is still, you've taken that out twice. 'Cause I already had it out of,
I did.
yeah, so it's so the balance is really 578,050.
I did. You are exactly right. 570, 578,050.
Yes, that's what I have.
I was really, just to let you guys know, I was hoping to get us down to $500,000. You know, I was really kind of, I didn't want to say anything, but
You're not there.
and we're not there, but we're a lot closer than, when we started this process. I think when we really started, the request came in and we were at like $1.2 million.
I think we were 2.2 actually.
What's that?
We were at 2.2 actually.
Oh,
but
gosh.
Some of
thanks.
it got moved down and whatever.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of that
But I
stuff's still
mean-
there. It's gone to ARPA.
Some's gone to ARPA, some has just gotten FERT, and that's what part of this process is dealing with priorities. That's what the capital plan really is talking about priorities. So I think we're down to a reasonable figure. And that puts us, Paula, 78. And the other thing it does is that we're going to be showing an increase in the capital fund balance. And that has been a change over time, which is a good thing. Really. So 578, so we're,
Yeah, we're going to increase it. In theory, it should increase by 570,000.
Gotta take,
We've got to
Now
take
that-
out
we
three
have-
hundred and forty some thousand shortfall though.
well, it's more than that because we just moved 45,000 over to 911. Or did we account for that?
I already accounted for that in the earlier number I gave you in the general fund.
Gotcha. Thank you. That's.
When in the
correct.
general fund, we're still short, correct? Negative.
General fund, you are still short. Back to the right page,
300.
163,000.
Okay, so I guess, given what we did with general, given what we did with capital, what would be your recommendation that now we're, for budgetary purposes, we're looking to transfer back to cover our negative balance.
You can do that, or you
Sure.
can pass an out of balance budget.
Not gonna
and-
do that.
And use up some of your reserves that you have built up.
Not gonna do that.
Then you need to, if you don't want to cut anything else, then you're gonna need to transfer that money back. You're gonna need to change that transfer.
And that amount, I would say a 400,000 transfer back is,
Well, we still have
Do
200,
365.
still have 256,000.
No, we don't.
250 or 200,000
200,000.
in contingencies for salaries that we haven't
No,
determined yet.
yeah. Well, it has been determined by, I thought the consensus of the committee was that we were gonna leave those dollars in and as we went through the startup and as we worked through the negotiation process. So I
Right,
don't
but
think
but
that's
some of the employees are not covered by a union contract.
correct.
That are on the contingency bucket.
Right.
Correct. But that 200,000 is gonna cover whatever you guys determine is gonna be their raise, which usually you've waited
should
until
hope so.
after negotiations to determine what that raise is going to be.
So we're gonna move 400,000 back out of capital. And so where do we end up?
Positive 30 something thousand.
I just seized up my software. It's got some complicated things that go back to my software program. And the link is broken because I'm not attached to the web here. Or internet, so I think I just broke my spreadsheet.
Okay, so
Wait a minute, no, maybe it's gonna let me do something. It's all broken now.
so so we know where what we're doing.
I
So
would
you
move
guys need
360
from us do you need a motion out of this committee that, or
Well-
you know what we're gonna do and then,
I am going to move 360, instead of the 400, I'm gonna move 360,000 back of the transfer to,
rather than the 400,
yes,
okay?
and that's,
And we're gonna show an even budget.
yes. That's what we're gonna do. 365,000. And I will take that out of the capital, so now your increase of 570 is only a couple $100,000.
But it's still an increase,
It's still an increase.
which we've been showing,
Correct,
yes, okay.
correct.
Everybody know what we're doing? Okay, so you do not need a motion out of this committee.
No,
So this will be
I
the
verbally
proposed
asked
budget
you guys are
that we
gonna,
will be posting.
yes,
Okay, so when you get this compiled, you'll be emailing this to us and
yes,
especially to me, because I'll
Yes.
be talking about this tomorrow night.
yes.
So, okay,
So is this gonna be presented tomorrow night?
no,
What do you want me to give you by tomorrow?
or what?
We have to approve
let's see,
this.
We won't, let's see,
This is gonna go on, we just need to have this done. Tomorrow's a board meeting?
Yeah.
Already?
Tomorrow
Or,
night.
yeah, okay.
tomorrow night.
So the plan was that this was gonna go on file in October and be approved in November.
Right.
So, you can just give them a verbal update tomorrow. I
Well,
don't,
That's all I was planning on doing. I just.
So we'll have a hard, clean copy for our next finance committee meeting to submit to the full board in October.
Correct.
Yes.
So we can still make, if we see anything that's obsolete or off the wall, we can make those changes at our next finance committee meeting.
Yes,
We could,
If we,
And
need- if need be.
if need.
yes. And I can give you kind of a little summary sheet probably today. Well, it won't take me too long.
There you go.
Yeah.
That'll be fine.
Okay.
Everybody comfortable? Okay. Any other, before we move on to our last item on the agenda, anything else? And this will just take, hearing none. So I put on there committee restructuring, and this isn't what, so one of the things, I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at what was coming out of administrative services, but one of the things was to codify something that we had been talking about. In our structure, there really is not a designated, we have a designated health insurance committee. We do not have a designation of a general liability or a general insurance committee. And it's been kind of as an ad hoc basis. And there's been some issues in regards to, especially as in our membership of CIRMA. Has there been a clear, definitive hierarchy of how questions, and whether it's coming down the line from our insurance carrier to up the line and whatnot, and I think our experience the last couple of years has really solidified the idea that we do need to have a general liability insurance committee. So you're going to see that language reflected in that. Kind of my thought was, rather than reinventing the wheel, so to speak, in having a separate committee, my thought process is, and I just wanted to have your guys' feedback on this, is that the insurance company would be the finance committee. And so therefore, if there was, because once we get past renewal time, the insurance committee will only meet periodically when necessary. So my thought, as far as how this would proceed, is that when there are issues in regards to general insurance questions, and it was necessary for us to have a committee meeting, we would simply schedule 20 minutes, half hour before the regular finance committee and have an insurance committee meeting. And then carry that through. If there was any action that came out of that, then it would be covered also under finance. That was kind of the way I was kind of thinking how that would work. You guys have at me if you have any different ideas or you guys think that sounds good. But I think it's absolutely necessary that we have some type of structure to handle general insurance questions.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that it would work good if the insurance committee was the finance committee, as long as there was understanding of what it needed to be done. And it would separate the situation where you would have separate finance or separate insurance committee here versus any actual tie-in to boards and things like that with CIRMA. Would work well.
Well, I think it's a necessary thing. It sounds a lot more complicated than what it is, but it's also about transparency.
We actually have it as a separate meeting.
Yes.
Same thing on health insurance.
Yes. So on the health insurance side, of course, as you remember, Arlen, is that we're required to have a health insurance committee by contract. And that membership of the health insurance committee is defined, having various members, coming from the various departments. So
it'd just be a subset of finance, separate minutes.
yeah, and we'd be a committee of the whole.
Yeah.
But this is going to be your tort and your liability insurance.
Correct.
Which is pretty much cut and dried anyway with workman's comp.
The biggest thing is as we go through, right now, there's not a process or not a body other than, and I don't remember having to do this, we talk about, our general liability insurance costs and what our, our auto, but there's never been a time where we've actually talked about this. And plus, there's when it comes to the time that we may decide to put our insurance needs up for bid, there's really not a group or process that handles that. And-
Close,
and
the
we need to
closest
have
we
it.
have to reviewing that is Safety Committee, of which Wendy is secretary. And the sheriff by our bylaws is the chairman of that particular committee with a representative from the properties committee and so on, and virtually other department heads. Am I correct? Forget how that structure actually falls. Just some department heads.
There are some, there are some
Right.
department heads on it, yeah.
So, I mean, Wendy, with all due respect, Chairman, Wendy has been really the go-to person for a lot of the safety committee stuff.
We actually created the safety committee years ago when we got involved in CIRMA, because CIRMA wanted to make sure that counties were mitigating, risk, obviously, in any way they could. It was their request to do that. So in the time that we've had the safety committee, we've never really considered going out to bid. So you're right, there is no real responsibility of anybody at this point in time if you were to want to go down that path.
Yeah, my understanding of the safety committee, John, is they did not have the responsibility of making those decisions in regards to
I
that.
agree.
That was an artifact of taking a
Well-
look at risk levels, broken sidewalks, things of that,
It
whatever.
was just the accepted thing, because if you go far enough back in the archives, there was myself and Judy Truckenbroad assisted in getting CIRMA organized. And there were 4 counties originally. I don't know how many there are, 25 or 30 now, but it was 4 counties originally, and it built from there. And it was, we had a board, and we got Gallagher involved, and it's just gone from there with the assumption, I'm sorry, that CIRMA was the insurance company, and we never thought about going out for bids. And so I agree with you. We need some sort of structure.
Okay, any other thoughts? My committee's getting smaller.
Yeah, I think you're
Just
down
for
to
the-
very,
just-
I don't even know if you got a quorum anymore, Jim.
Well, for the record, Liram is still with you behind this on the
Oh,
screen.
that's
I
right.
can see.
So you got a quorum.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all I have. Does anybody have anything else for the good of the cause? So I have a motion to adjourn by Mr. McLean, seconded by Mr. Humphrey. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Thanks for everybody's patience. Thanks for all hard work. This is not an easy committee. It's not an easy process, and it's good that it is not easy, because we are talking about taxpayer dollars. Thank you all.